Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we're going to be talking about Greedy by Callie Kazumi. Now, this is a book that I saw just by browsing a Goodreads front page where, I randomly will see books that other people are reading, and I liked the cover and the title, and so it gave me vibes of something that I would enjoy, so I picked it up, and we're going to talk about it. Now, I know this is the first video of May, and I kind of have been a bit MIA, but I've been I've been battling depression and self-worth and fighting against the urge to just, hide away from everybody because I just feel like a burden and a loser in everybody's life, and I know that that is not really accurate. I'm not gonna get into a whole ton of it, what those things are, but it's been a trying couple of months since September, specifically, and just, the things that people, that I care about have said to me or not said in some cases, and, yeah, I know that it's irrational, so I'm really trying not to do that to people, but it is a demon that I'm fighting a lot, and then on top of that, while I've been away, I've been, reading and people watching and interacting, and it's just, led me to be like, "Why even bother doing anything? Because it doesn't matter." Like, the number of people that stoke negativity or stoke insult as a business model is disgusting, and, people that are claiming to care about things don't care about things. I ran into multiple people over the last month, specifically in the book sphere, that, are grifting, that are lying about things, and both times I tried to interact and they both got aggressive, and one of them was discussing a book that was not even marketed as romantasy, and, getting on the author and the publisher when it was readers that made it romantasy, and then saying it wasn't horror, wasn't disgusting because she wasn't disgusted by the visceral description, so it wasn't horror enough, it wasn't gothic enough, but freaking out. Oh, and then saying, the cannibalization of a baby was less offensive than a bad guy being fat. Like, she talked about almost crying about a fat guy being evil, and how that's some implication that fat is evil, instead of, a symbol of greed that usually happens. You have it in Spirited Away, you have it in Little Nightmares, you have it friggin' Kim Jong-un is recognized for being heavier than other North Koreans because he overindulges, because he can, because he's a dictator. Like, it's not only a trope, but it's a common thing that we see in history. Now, that doesn't mean that every evil person is fat or every fat person is evil, but that is also the same in a story. Anyway, the fact that she was like, "I was almost brought to tears reading that this evil character was fat, and it's so fat phobic, it's so sad," and then trying to, discuss the things that she was saying in the video, and, there's no interest in that. While she's talking in her video about wanting conversation, or the other person who's claiming being a censored, canceled conservative when, well, centrist, who likes Charlie Kirk, but whatever, for a handful of people not liking her book cover, and she decided to change her book cover, and then turning it into more of a campaign to try to sell more stuff. The amount of fake people and people that turn interaction into a combat so they can make it a business has just been disgusting. And then on top of that, just watching stuff and reading stuff about relationships and life situations from Reddit threads, and just the amount of hurt that people willingly cause other people, and especially the people that they love, is just been it's been really hard to just, see a purpose in literally anything, because it doesn't seem to matter who you are or what you do. Even the people that you care about will never care about you, is what it's felt like to me. And, I've personally felt like I've been chasing the people that I care about to not care about me. And in some cases, I'm sure that's true, and in some cases, I'm sure it's not. But anyway, I'm not going to sit on that too much. I did lose a very important friendship to me a couple months ago, and some of the things that were said have just been really hard and just kind of feeding the demons that have followed me. So, anyway, that's one of the reasons that I have been gone. I've been trying to fight the cynicism, but it's obviously been very hard. Aside from that, I have also been playing Far Cry quite quite a bit in my free time. I finished 4 and 5, and now I'm playing New Dawn. I really liked both of them, though I liked 5 more because I really liked the Seeds family. And it took me a minute to get used to it not having a map, like a mini map, because I'm so used to having mini maps. But I like the idea that they went with to get rid of the mini map to encourage exploration more. And I really liked the setup. I do wish that they had built more with the characters, spent more time with the characters, built more with the characters, because I think there was more that they could have done. But aside, it's been good, and now I'm playing New Dawn. 3 will be next. Anyway, with that said, now that I've got this long friggin' introduction out of the way, not only did I like the cover of this book, but also obviously there's a Hanya. It kind of implies Yakuza, and that's been a guilty pleasure of mine since I was a child, like, or since I was younger. Like, I don't know if you know this, one of the first stories that I wrote with a good friend of mine, from that time, my character in that, his name was Farron Rose, and he was a son in the mafia. You know, I liked Hitman Reborn. I picked up different Yakuza stuff. It's always been a thing for me. And so here we are. But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number one way to be featured is through Lamwai, the monthly prompt writing contest, where I give you a prompt, you write a short story, and on the first video of the month, we go through some of those stories, except for obviously this month. I'm doing the ones that I collected in May next month, so it'll be next week, since I kind of took this month off of videos. And yeah, so we'll be returning with that. The new prompt for July is up, so there is that. And then there's also the feature. If you have a book out or a book that is coming out and you would like your first chapter read here on the channel with no feedback, just send it in there. And then there is also the new thing, Crit This, where if you would like your book critique or your short story critiqued, just read those and you can send them in. I'm now offering manuscript consultations and private feedback on my Ko-fi, if that is something that might interest you. Just get to know my stuff, and it's very much a process of I want to know like how you're approaching something, what your goal is, and then you know we'll talk and try to figure out how to enhance what you're doing through that. So that's very much a collaborative process to best serve you, and that is an option there. I never want to be dictating anything. And then the last thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, they're available at anywhere that you get books. And my newest novel, The Legend of Bill Cassidy, book 1, will come out hopefully someday this year, but waiting on a cover. So that's pretty much, I don't know, it's when the cover figures itself out. So with that said, let's jump into Greedy, and I'm very excited. As much as I've lacked the motivation to sit down and record for hours and then edit for hours, I've really missed getting to talk to you guys about books, because I really love talking about books. And this book, while I am lukewarm on it, and you're gonna see why I'm lukewarm on it, it is well enough put together that we can focus on discussing the themes and how it was written, instead of it just being like so poorly written that we can't really discuss anything. And that's what I really, really love about books, is getting to discuss what it is they're portraying or putting forward, or at least what we interpret from those books, because it gives us a strong, specific situation to discuss ideas that aren't vague, because we've got a scenario to go off and we've got all of the pieces to kind of dissect. And so that is what I really love. I mean, I think I've really enjoyed the Far Cry games, at least 4 and 5, because I can see complexity in the antagonist. I mean, I would maybe, I don't know, New Dawn so far just looks like the villains are might makes right. And like, while that's interesting enough to talk about on its own, as I've discussed might makes right on this channel with Redbeard book and a couple, I never actually got around to finishing Michael Malice's book of essays about libertarians, or essays from libertarians. There was some might make right in there. And I've wanted to finish it to discuss it, because there was like an essay in the beginning of that where the dude was talking about how if you're not strong enough to take care of yourself, to defend yourself, then you deserve to suffer or die, whatever the stronger people think. And there were like rants in that essay talking about how babies deserve to die because they can't defend themselves. And like, when it comes to might makes right, and I've had those people in my comments before too, I'm just disgusted. I'm disgusted by the hatred towards people and the selfishness. And it just kind of goes back to how this video even started, and kind of depressing, of just watching human interactions and what discussions are right now, and how so much on social media is about dominating other people, insulting other people, turning this into currency, to like turning people's hatred and frustration turning people's frustration into hatred and turning that hatred into currency. And it's just like not looking at people as people. In so many discussions, you either like with relationships, you have so many that are like looking at the opposite sex or well, specifically opposite sex, because I'm seeing a lot of that on my dashboard. Probably because I'm straight, but you see so much seeing people as tools one way or another and just the insult constantly dehumanizing people constantly in order to insult and generalize, and it goes both ways, all the ways, and it's not limited to that either, but it's an easy thing to reach for, and it's just been really sad. Anyway, so that's kind of going to, not to say might makes right doesn't have its own complexities. It's just like might makes right people kind of disgust me for obvious reason. I don't have anything positive to say about that, but that's not what this video is about. So let's get into the book and stop like meandering into that. Just we're gonna do page 1 so you can get a feel for the vibes of the way the book is written. Quote, "They will kill me soon," he thinks to himself. Another hard kick comes, a firm leather toe cracking into his rib cage. He grunts and keeps his eyes closed. The thought of dying doesn't bother Ed as it once would have. He can't see another way out of his current predicament. Death would only resolve the problem, an easy exit for himself, eternal rest after so many sleepless weeks. There's a viciously sharp kick to his shoulder, and he curls tighter into himself, knees to chin. He's toyed with the idea of joining the ghosts of the Aoki Aihara suicide forest, of swinging from a hooked branch out of this life and into the next, but he knows that it isn't an option. When Ikagi and his troop of Yakuza grunts are unable to collect what they are owed from his cold corpse, they'll turn to his innocent wife and child for payment, Sayuri. The thought makes Ed's stomach clench with guilt-rusted fear. A glob of spit lands on his arm, hooked up by one of the gangsters, booting him into an alleyway where he was jumped. "Let this be your final reminder. Your payment is due soon. Anaki is waiting," one of the thugs warns, referring to their boss, Isamu Ikagi. Then he takes a tanto knife from his pocket, the curved point glinting sharply in the autumn sunlight. He wags it playfully right beside Ed's nose, which twitches nervously. "Next time you can't cough up anything of value, we'll be leaving with your pinky finger." He grins, showcasing a silver canine. Ed curls his hands into fists reflexively and manages to grunt an affirmation. He understands. He knows his time is running out, the interest rate accelerating with every breath he takes. The second man throws one final blow to Ed's side, and he groans. He needs to bring in some cash, fast. Everyone knows Ikagi always collects his debts, and boy does Ed owe some debt. Everyone local has heard of his missing Ricky, the loudmouth American expat who got in too deep with Ikagi and hasn't been seen since. The rumors say he's 10 feet under in Sumida River, rocks tied to his ankles. Ed laughed about it over pint, made jokes, and blamed Sticky Ricky for getting into such a bad deal with such a bad group of guys. At the beginning of this novel, we're introduced to the main character, Edward Cook, a British man who came to Japan from the UK 8 years ago. He met a woman named Sayuri pretty early on and married her, and together they share a home and a 2-year-old daughter named Kaori. Sayuri is from a poor background, and Ed looked promising to her. Handsome, well off, skilled, but then the pandemic hit and stuff shut down. Both Sayuri's job at a coffee shop and Ed's work were included in that shutdown. The first month they were together at home, they were happy, getting to spend extra time as a family and watching their daughter grow up together. But it's been 6 months since then, and Ed has been out of work that entire time. When Ed gets home to his wife after being beaten by the Yakuza, he lies to her again about what happened to him. He can't really hide that he's got a black eye, that he's beaten, but he lies about what happened, as he's been doing for months, and just says that he has been out job hunting. She sighs. This is the same song and dance that they have been playing for months. He lets her down, and she won't call him out on the bruises and the blood that he wears home. He's thought about returning to the UK, but he knows that the Yakuza would go after his wife to collect the debt that he has. He'd also, if he went back to the UK, he knows that his wife wouldn't want to come with him because she loves Japan. He also knows that the Yakuza would go after his wife to collect his debt if he left or disappeared for any reason. He also is very aware that he is running on his wife's last nerve and that she may be preparing to take their daughter to go live with her parents. And he doesn't even blame her. He's desperate. He knows that he is messing up big time. He feels bad every time he lies, but he also has such an ego that he doesn't want to tell her how he has messed up because he feels so much shame. He fears losing her because she and Kaori mean so much to him, but he also hates himself for being out of work for the Yakuza that he got tied up in, and because of the eviction notices he's been hiding, because whatever bad fortune happens to her, it'll be his fault, and he wants to stop that if he can. As if by fate, which is what he says, his eyes fall upon an ad in the paper of someone looking for a private chef. Quote, "Private chef wanted for a high profile businesswoman. Does not need professional training or Michelin stars, but must have a knack for good flavoring and an experimental disposition. The right character is as important as the cooking for this particular role. Application process will require a sit down interview and a paid 2 day trial, including an overnight stay. Successful candidate will be required on and off long term for private dining and will be paid handsomely for discretion. The potential for a full time live in role is not out of the question for the right person at the right time. The client speaks both Japanese and English, so a chef with fluency in either language is required. An NDA will be necessary before the interview. Salary from 1 million yen per day for the right person." The offer is too good to pass up, even though Ed knows he's not a cook and really hasn't been a cook since he was in the UK, where he just did like basic line cook stuff. It sounds like he has worked in placement as a salaryman, so because he has said that he has placed people before in roles like this, so he knows what employers are looking for. And is with his English, he believes that he has an advantage that he can levy over other applicants. After he sends off an email, he picks up his daughter's toys, and hearing his wife and daughter in the other room, he thinks of how much he loves them while ruminating on how things got so bad. Quote, "It all began when he was laid off from his job. He had worked so hard to get to where he was, and it was all taken from him in the blink of an eye. After the virus, a large company restructure took place. There were widespread redundancies. 6 in the retirement department emerged from the HR room with their heads hanging low in defeat, and all of them left the office and went to drown their sorrows together at a local train station bar. Ed was one of them. After many hours and many drinks, they ended up inside a pachinko parlor, where Ed discovered a penchant for the arcade style game. He went home that night with over 10,000 yen in his pocket. Then, instead of searching for a new job, as Sayuri thought he was, he became addicted to the quick hit of cash that he would take home from a decent win. It quickly morphed into weekends spent at the kiosks betting on horses, powerboat racing, motocross, whatever sport was going at the best rate. He would win and feel a sweet rush of pleasure, satisfaction warming his spine as he crammed wrinkled bills into his back pocket. The online offshore casino website opened his world even further. The cash was hard and fast. He felt as though he was losing his virginity all over again. Whenever he lost, he'd think, "I'll make it back. One more game and I'll earn it back." He started gambling away Kaori's tuition pot, the money he and Sayori had been putting aside each month or for 2 years in the hopes of sending her to a prestigious university without worry one day. But she was only a toddler and he had time to win it back. Then he gambled their car away, telling Sayuri that it had been written off in an accident. The mistakes piled up, and Ed could see no way out other than continuing on. Surely you had to take a fall before you could climb to the top. He had to be due a big win soon. It was the law of odds, wasn't it? Unsatisfied by the limitation of Japan's laws, Ed went down to the less than legal route, gambling and incurring debts with the Yakuza. It was stupid then, and it is stupid now. He knows that he got too big for his boots, believed that he could outsmart them. He was on a winning streak and wanted bigger payouts than the legal parlors and offshore websites could offer him. And so he got involved with Isumi Ikagi. I personally think that this did a good job of making me care about Ed in the beginning. Not anything to do with his getting caught in the trap of gambling after a personal hit of losing his job. That's hard and can be easily encouraged by negative feelings washed over by positive ones with winning. But how much he cares about his family, and I don't think the narrative is lying about that. And I still don't, as I went through the book, I don't believe that he ever lied about how much he cared about his family. I do think that his character is a little on the underdeveloped side, and that he's got like this hint of anger and like a violent anger that we never get to see develop into anything that I thought was going to develop into something, but like it'll mention it when we get there. I also think that he's just made bad decisions when he got fired, and then the good feelings of winning took over. I know something about coping with negative feelings when something bad happens and just wanting even feelings to just sort of wash over the bad ones for a little bit, even if it's not like positive. But he's obviously had such a good return on those feelings that he got addicted to them. And that's an understandable thing to me. All you want to do is blunt the bad, and it can be addictive when you find that thing to heal it. I think it's so much easier to fall into pits of despair and then make mistakes because they feel good at a time, and then you get used to it or you just desire that thing. And that is something that I can at least appreciate, and that you aren't trying to hurt the people around you. And then like the having bad things happen or doing bad things and then being so ashamed to mention it. I mean, that even happens with overeaters that cope with eating because of bad things. Like there are just so many things. I now after applying for this job, Ed receives an interview now, after applying for the job, Ed does receive an invite for an interview. He's to spend the weekend at the employer's estate, preparing a meat based lunch, a light dinner, and a traditional Japanese breakfast as his interview. He tells his wife of the interview, which he immediately thinks is strange. He doesn't even know who he'll be working for. Ed is upset that she's not happy for him like she should be. And it's kind of weird that she is not happy. This is trying to be a red herring where she should have just been happy, but I don't know why it had to make it so Ed just got irritated at her in this moment when she should have been like, "That is so wonderful," because this is what she has wanted the whole time. And it's even more odd in retrospect, so I'm going to, like, spoil the ending for you guys right now because this should have somewhat been telegraphed, but even then, she has no reason to just be like, "Well, this is strange," because he doesn't think it's strange. She set him up for this. So he rejected her direct help of, "Hey, I can help get you a job," because he was ashamed and didn't want his wife to have to carry him, so she stopped offering. But she knew somebody who knows this woman who said that the woman was hiring, and Sayuri told that person, "Can you get my husband the job? But we have to do it in a way that makes it look like it was his idea because he is too prideful to ask for help." So she set this up so that it became an ad, and then she laid the paper out so that he would see the ad, and then he would apply for it thinking it's his idea. I don't quite understand why she wasn't like, "Oh, that's really awesome. I'm so proud of you." It's kind of strange how this is being done though, don't you think? You know, like she could still be positive, and it's just a red herring because yeah, they're obviously like at each other's throats a little bit because things are tense. He's lying to her. She knows that he's lying. Things have been tough for 6 months, but also, like, I think that this wanted to pull the wool over the reader's eyes more than it be a character study, when this book really should have been more of a character study. Anyway, Ed's kind of pissed that she's not happy for him, and the anger is somewhat explosive, but he also tells himself that he can't be mad that she's not happy for him because he has lied to her about how bad the situation is. Like, that's one of the reasons why he is pissed, because he's like looking at the 2 million yen he could walk away with just from the interview alone, and he's like, I could pay off some things. I could get the Yakuza off my back. But he also realized, and so he thinks that she's kind of being ungrateful in that, and she's not excited about that, but he's also like, she doesn't know about all of the debts that I owe, so I can't even be mad at her for this. He comments, quote, he pauses, collects himself, breathes out. He is just jealous of her naivety, of her ability to be sensible rather than desperate. He tries to assure her that this is a great opportunity, and Sayori responds, quote, look, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that you're getting an interview, especially after turning down my offer to help you search. Interesting for you to switch to a cooking job, she says, swinging around to face her husband. Turns out that a couple months ago, when he was first struggling to find another job, Sayuri offered that her friends could give him a referral to get a job, but Ed turned her down and told her to stay out of it because he felt ashamed and embarrassed that his wife was telling her friends about his failing her, and that's really where it hurt his ego, because he's supposed to be taking care of her, and here she is telling her friends their business, and he just felt embarrassed. He knew that she was trying to help, but the pity and shame was just too much. He tries to cover the switch in his career by saying that he likes cooking, but when him and Sayuri first met, he told stories about how he used to be a line cook and how much he freaking hated it in the UK, and he knows that Sayuri has probably not forgotten that. One of the reasons that she fell in love with him is that she really loved the way that he did storytelling and all the expressions he used, and so he is more than certain she did not forget how their relationship started. The two of them are tense, and baby Kaori is oblivious to this conflict going on. I think that these two chapters did an excellent job of setup of the relationship between the two, Ed's faults, his weaknesses, worries, what he needs to do, and the consequences if he doesn't. And even with all of his faults, especially lying and pride, his motivator is still that he loves his family and he doesn't want to let them down or put them in danger, any more danger than they're already in, because he lacked self control and thought in the moment. That for me gives enough that I would hope that he would succeed, because his goal is outside of himself, and it is a noble goal that also has to do with conquering his weaknesses, which are the gambling. You also hope, even if you don't like Ed, because yes, he did some stupid things with getting into the gambling and the Yakuza stuff, you still want to see him succeed, just so Sayuri and Kaori don't get punishment for things that they didn't do. So, trying his best to put on this ruse, Ed got himself a cheap costume for a master chef adult male, and then went out to the countryside where his new employer resides. He doesn't understand why someone with so much money would want to live way out here in the middle of nowhere when they could enjoy living in Tokyo and being close to everything. He is then greeted by the housekeeper, a German man named Roderick Bauer. What you're going to notice in this book is like the majority of the characters that are named and featured, like, well, I shouldn't say the majority. Actually, I think it's pretty even, because you have Ed Cook, who is British. You have his wife, Sayori, who is Japanese. You have Roderick, who is German. You have Hazeline, who is a Hafu. And then you have Nakamura, who is the driver, who is Japanese. So you kind of have an even split between the two. And in my opinion, this comes across as inspiration from the experiences that the author has, because she is a British Japanese writer. So you're going to see that mixture of experiences. And I think even the fact that it is so evenly split, that the main cast is both Japanese and British or European in some way, also goes back to the experiences of that, because she's not all Japanese or all British. I know some people critiqued this in the Goodreads reviews as being very white, because Hazeline and probably Roderick, and then you've got like a US senator that visits because she knows a bunch of rich people, but she's also got like K-pop, but she's also got like J-pop stars that visit. So it's a mixture of people. And I think that just relates back to identity of the author and the author's experiences. But I digress. I mean, I even take that away from just the name Callie Kazumi, because that's kind of a way of showcasing both of the author's backgrounds. I mean, yeah, it is her name, but if she really wanted to lean one way or the other, she could have used a pen name. As Ed is led through the house to meet his employer, the opulence makes him reflect on his own home. Quote, before the gambling, he used to treat Sayuri to random gifts and surprises, her favorite flowers or evenings out at restaurants. Their home was a happy sanctuary. Nowadays, it is merely a reflection of his failures as a husband and a father. And I think that this is another good observation to talk about, or to have for Ed, because as he gets involved with this upper cruster, this very rich woman, it doesn't start out as being about greed, about wanting more. It has to do with, bringing back the sanctuary, bringing back the safety, being able to stand on his own as his own man, and being able to take care of his wife and daughter as he believes that he should be able to do. And that's a noble cause, to want to take care of his own problems and to take care of his family and the problems that he's brought onto his family. And I think that it's a great place to start, to allow this desire to be more, to seep in and sort of twist what it once was. I think that could have been done better if that's what this was trying to do, but it's still a worthy observation. As they continue past the Zen garden, Ed hears a scream and alerts Roderick of it. He's alarmed when Roderick acts like he didn't hear it, and then the man says it was probably a fox in the area, because everything is so heavily guarded and protected that there is nobody on the estate that shouldn't be here. Ed goes back and forth on if he should believe what he is being told, saying that he's probably overthinking it because he's so used to violence with the Yakuza that he is assuming the worst when it happens. And sure enough, a fox comes running out of the bushes, and Ed is delivered to the Madame. Now, that is also very clearly foreshadowing. It's very clearly a red herring. It kind of wants to give you this idea, and that was very obvious to me from the beginning. Like, this author is very on the nose with like putting signs in front of your face, in front of Ed's face, that hey, something bad is going on here, and then making him completely oblivious. And I think that this would have been good for sustaining tension if the continuation of the book wasn't always so in your face. But I also would have been cool, and you'll see what I mean as we go through. I just don't want to forget to say this because I don't remember if I put it in my notes anywhere. But I think if Ed experienced like all of these signs that something bad was happening here and he was choosing ignorance, he was going, look, this looks suspicious, but I'm going to choose to believe what they're telling me. I think that would have been stronger than him being actually so idiotic that he sees human teeth and he goes, nah. Like, there's gonna be a bit later, and I know that I have the quotes for that in here, where she literally straight up tells him what's going on, and he's like, "You're joking, right?" And this is after a teenage girl has disappeared. He's seen the book of weird recipes that she has, kind of like Hannibal has in the TV show Hannibal. They've talked about weird meat. He's brought home weird meat. He's seen remnants of cannibalism. The woman has been talked about as Yaba Uma, the witch in the forest that eats lost children. Like, that is literally her nickname. They talk about it. She also brings up cannibalistic tribes and how the Aztecs used to eat people so that they could consume their power or gain their power. Like, it is not subtle in the cannibalism. And then she says, BT dubs, I eat children. And he's like, no. And just, it's not even him rejecting the reality because he doesn't want to, and he wants the access to the money and the power, but not the corruption, so it's willful ignorance. This is him being such an idiot that he straight up sees all these things and then doesn't believe it at all until she pounds it into his head that she is a cannibal. Plot twist, spoiler alert if you didn't guess it already. Like, anyway, they reach the Madame, and the room is filled with knickknacks and decorations from her travels. They're all important. She's not cluttered, but it does talk about all of these decorations. The woman is described as, quote, Ed blinks through the smoke, adjusting to the sudden change of scenery, and finds a small woman nestled amidst the blankets on the ground. It's as though she is a tiny creature who has retreated inside of her burrow to hibernate. Within her arms, she cradles a small, fluffy white dog. It lunges towards Ed, but she holds it closely and scratches its head until it relaxes, body sagging, but still eyeing Ed with mistrust. They say dogs can smell deception, and Ed looks away from it. She is as fascinating as her environment, and he recognizes her instantly from the papers. She looks to be in her 60s, her thinning lips carefully colored a soft salmon pink, her eyes made up, and her silver hair pinned back with a clip designed to look like a flamingo. The bird sits garishly atop her head, in contrast to her simple beige outfit, though even Ed can tell the fabrics are luxurious from the way that they hang like drapes on her. Her neck is adorned with gaudy choker, beads dangling like raindrops against her collarbone. Some look like teeth. Like, we're already here. Some look like teeth. Don't stare, Petal. Come in, she says in English, her voice husky and deep. She waves Ed toward her with a flappy hand, a cigarette clutched in her gnarled fingers. The incense must be to mask the smell of tobacco. Her nails are painted a deep red, and at first glance remind Ed of bloodied claws. So not only do we have the screaming fox, we have the teeth necklace, and we have bloodied finger claws. Like, okay, if you're gonna make it obvious, this is why I'm like, if you're gonna make it obvious, have him recognize it and reject it, which is what I was kind of holding on to that it would do. But don't make him so idiotic that he's going to recognize this stuff and then, like, not think anything of any of it. Because that's also, there's only so much stupidity that you can buy into. unless you do it a certain way, okay? I'm not gonna say because I can't even say because Jan knew that something was up, but he is such a hopeful, like in my book, or one of my books. Jan is such a hopeful, optimistic person that like he'll see negative signs and then he will ignore them or reject them because he wants to hope for the best until he's unable to acknowledge that the bad is what it is. And that puts him in bad positions because he is rejecting obvious truth of the danger of a situation until he can no longer actually reject it. Because he just doesn't want to believe people are that bad. Because he doesn't want to believe people are that selfish. But that's not what happens here. So the woman introduces herself as Hazeline, never to be called anything else, and her dog's name is Momo. Ed introduces himself, and she comments on his name, the irony of a cook being a cook, and Ed for rhyming, quote, Ed, Ed, he'll kill you dead. He'll cut you up and mash your head. Ed, Ed, he'll boil your brains. He'll bleed you out and fry your veins. She trails off with a wide grin, her yellowing teeth marked with a fleck of lipstick. I've never heard that before, he tells her. Of course not, Petal. I just made it up. Another loud bark of laughter. Like, and she is obsessed with violence. Like, you're either on the nose and you're playing into this on the nose, or you're subtle. And this, I mean, even from the beginning chapter, there was a in that opening scene where I read the full passage, there was some of that writing that was just like, the reader is an idiot. And I'm going to comment on some of that later because I saved other portions of this, but the entire book is written in a way that is like shoving everything in your face as if you're kind of adult. And I don't necessarily think that this author does think that the reader is an idiot for when they're doing these things. I think that it often happens that you want to make sure that the ideas you're writing are getting across. And as a writer, you might think that you're more subtle than you're actually being. So then you go over the top to make sure that you're not too subtle, that people can't pick up on it. And then it's shoving it in the face when really you can pull back and it still makes sense. And would land better and even just sound better. I have some sections that I can show you for that later. Anyway, her room is filled with books, mostly recipe books, and one little black notebook that she covers. She says that it's a private recipe. When I was reading this, I'm like, it's a death note. It's 100% a death note. Just prove me wrong. Hazeline starts asking him about his previous experiences as a cook, why she should hire him, and how much he needs this job, poking him until he says he fucking needs it and mentions his daughter and wife and his dire situation. Hazeline is appeased by his compliance and responds, quote, if I'd known you were carless, I could have sent Mr. Nakamura for you, she adds breezily. Your chauffeur? I saw him outside washing the car. Yes, he works as my driver, but really he's more like family. She grins at him, and it still feels like a predator smiling at its freshly captured prey. I'm sure that if your interview is successful, you and I will end up feeling like family too. Ed shivers, but hides it with a wide grimace of a smile. So again, we already have she's like a predator watching her recently captured prey. We're leaning so hard into this. From this conversation, the stakes, the cover, and the genre, you know something isn't quite right with whatever this woman is hiring for. Even Ed knows something isn't right, but he needs this job, the money, too much to acknowledge all of the red flags. I think I thought so far at this point, it was doing a good job at building tension. It's setting expectations that something isn't quite right. Also, something about this feels misleading. Now, Hazeline isn't some random unknown woman. In fact, she had her face plastered across all of the tabloids and magazines in a very unfavorable way since she became known. Quote, Hazeline was Hafu. Her father, a prominent Japanese businessman, her mother, a British model. Raised at a Japanese boarding school and having spent time in Britain growing up, she became somewhat of a low-level socialite in London, eventually marrying into the Yamamoto Empire and being fully thrust into the spotlight. The media had a field day when Japan's finest eligible bachelor billionaire Botan Yamamoto married someone of mixed heritage. And what followed was a beating heart of what keeps journalism alive. Tragedy. First, Hazeline's tragic infertility struggles, followed by Bolton's death from a rare cancer that the family had kept secret. Much to the distress of the Yamamotos, Bolton left his entire estate and everything in his will to his beloved wife. This triggered a horrific media frenzy, painting Hazeline as a foreign gold digger and an improper successor to their business, with Bolton's parents even trying to sue her before they succumbed to old age. Hazeline then disappeared from the limelight. The press found their next scandal, and she lay near forgotten on the pages of where are they now website listicles. At the time, Ed felt sorry for the grieving widow who was seemingly being persecuted. Now, having met her, he can understand why the Yamamotos felt she was unsuitable to carry on their name. She was almost vulgar in her westernness, her disregard for restraint and conformity evident even in the few minutes that they'd spent together. So that kind of even says that Ed may have conformed to Japanese society more so than Hazeline is showing, but Hazeline is also, 60 and has fought with the Japanese media, probably rejected the Japanese media because of how they treated her. And also with her being a hafu, she probably never really got along in a certain way and felt it differently than Ed, who's just a gaijin. At least that's how it comes off to me. Hazeline tells Ed that she wants to eat while leading him to the kitchen. He shares how he met his wife on a train back in Tokyo, and Hazeline shares how she met her husband at a party. Quote, Hazeline stops walking as though halting to savor the memory in full. It was an event. In all honesty, I can't remember what it was even for. Some sort of gala or something. I had been dragged there and knew nobody. I was supposed to be networking or schmoozing, I suppose. Many of the guests knew my father. But nobody ever spoke to me at these things. My mother had it even worse. She was almost ignored entirely. Why? Hazeline raises her eyebrows. Well, not only was she a white woman in a world of Japanese businessmen, but she was unqualified, a model. She may as well have been a beautiful statue. Whenever she spoke, it was as though she were an amusement, nothing taken seriously. Eventually, she learned to stop speaking to merely stand by my father's side looking pretty while the men did business. Anyway, I was standing at the edge of the crowd looking in and wishing that I were anywhere else when Bowden emerged beside me and offered me a drink. I knew who he was, of course. Everyone in the Tokyo business world knew who he was. And he leaned toward me. And do you know what he said? He basically said that he wished he wasn't there either, like he was reading her mind, and they hit it off on that. Shown to the kitchen, Hazeline has all of these gadgets that Ed has never even recognized or seen before. He's given information about when she likes to eat and where she likes to eat. Ed comments on the food. Ed comments on how much she seems to like food, and she replies, I don't like food, Ed. I love food. I don't eat to survive, I eat to savor. It should always be worth it. Every mouthful a justification for my body. She then asks Ed if he knows what it's like to grow up in Japan as a hafu. This, I think, is an important thing to share entirely, since to me it sounds like a motivating factor and will relate to the title and theme of Greed. Quote, I had hips that flared outward. I had thighs that curved. I am 5'6". I may as well have been an Olympic basketballer. And do you know what the worst part about this society is? She seethes. Ed shakes his head silently, not willing to place a bet. The clothing stores are by and large one size fits all. But it's not truly one size fits all because I am not a pure-blood Japanese. I do not go straight up and down like their petite women do. I had a waist circumference much larger than the East Asian average. Do you know what it's like to grow up here considered a chubby girl? How hard it is? No. No, of course you don't. Well, let me tell you, Petal, it wasn't fun. I was poked and prodded, called soft and pudgy. Boys would laugh at me. I was never a desirable date. School health checks, mid-weigh-ins, a chance for everyone to gawk at me in horror, girls giggling behind hands, whispering into each other's ears as though I didn't have the imagination to work out what they were saying about me. In the UK, I would have been considered small. Here, I was a freak. I couldn't fit into any clothes that the trendy stores offered. It didn't matter how pretty my face was, or how fluent I could speak the language. My body was not to their beauty standards, and I was picked on for being different, an oddity. So I stopped eating. I stopped eating, Ed, and for years I was thin. Still tall, still my hips jutted out, but my breasts shrunk, and I could finally squeeze into their one-size-fits-all. Girls could try to pinch at my belly playfully, but they would come out empty-handed. I was thin. I was gorgeous, and I was fucking starving. For years, I was so skinny I would parade around at parties, chain smoking, avoiding the canapes, relying on calories from champagne and highballs to keep me going. I attracted Botan. Hordes of women wanted his attention, but somehow it was me he looked at with interest. An enigma, he called me. And after my darling husband died, do you know what I realized? She lowered her voice and is leaning. She has lowered her voice and is leaning right into Ed's face, so close that he can smell the stale cigarettes on her breath. He daren't move. I was absolutely famished. She licks her lips and straightens herself, giving Ed a bit more breathing room. She wags a finger and gestures for him to follow once more. He tucks his stool back underneath the counter and wipes the sweat from his brow. This was when I decided, Ed, to enjoy every single morsel that crosses my lips. I'd deprived myself of the joy of eating for far too long. My husband is dead. I am largely alone. The media hates me. My friends are shallow and materialistic. The only enjoyment I have left comes from the food I consume. What use is dying skinny and hungry? When I join Lucifer, I shall be plump and happy, and I can't bring myself to give a damn what anyone thinks about it, she says, flinging open another cupboard door and showcasing a spread of tinned goods. Ed pats his own little stomach roll affectionately. I agree. Food is to be enjoyed. Isn't it? Hazeline exclaims, as though he has made a jaw-dropping revelation. You know, the first thing a child learns to communicate is, I'm hungry. Their fat, wormy little fingers pointing at their maws. It is human nature to desire food, to ask to be fed. That is why you're here, Ed. I want to be fed. I want to be satiated. Tell me, do you read much? No, I can't say that I do. Well, Margaret Atwood once wrote, last year I abstained, this year I devour without guilt. This is my mantra for my remaining years, my manifestation, so to speak. Ed is told that there is an incinerator in the basement, and for a moment he's scared, and then becomes offended when he learns that it's for burning excess food after parties, when he is like, does she know how many people would love to have her leftovers who could eat off of that? Ed is left in the kitchen to make something for lunch, whatever he wants, and Hazeline will buy the supplies if he needs them, but says that she'll be impressed if he uses what's on hand. Now, there are all kinds of meat in the kitchen, except there's no chicken, so he chooses duck instead. He also learns that Roderick has been working for Hazeline for 40 years, so he's been around probably, like, she's in her 60s. He's been around since her husband was alive, which also would be interesting to know how their relationship became what it was, when it became what it was. Like, we really don't get deep into these characters, and I'm gonna say this now because I don't know if I'll say it later or remember to say it later, but this book feels like it should be a character study and also discussing, like, greed and how these different things become, like, all-consuming, really. Just there are more ways to look at greed than just, like, "Ah, blah, 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 blah," but just, like, letting those things become all-consuming of you, like his pachinko parlor or betting needs, and then her desire to eat, which also her greed, I feel like part of her greed is getting back at the society that rejected her for who she was, and we'll get into that. I mean, I already said she's a cannibal, so, like, she mostly eats Japanese kids. She doesn't only eat Japanese kids because she does import, Ellie later, but she's 60. She's still living in Japan when she doesn't have to live in Japan, and then, picking from the local kids. So, part of it for me feels like a desire to get back at the society that she never fit into, that treated her in a way she deemed poorly and made her starve herself just to fit into a box that she no longer cares to fit into. And her eating of people is just another way of rejecting the societal norms that she felt forced into. Anyway, moving on. And so what I was saying there is I feel like the story has so much more set up here for or ideas here that it could be character and then lean into theme, but the way that it goes down feels like it is more into, like, surprising the reader or trying to pull one over on the reader, and it's gonna end up being more suspense than anything. And if you know how I've talked about, like, suspense and thriller books before, if your biggest thing is to be twisty, you lose so much to me. It just sucks. It just sucks. Anyway, Roderick affirms that Hazeline and her husband each loved each other. So I don't think that they cheated, but I think that Roderick and Hazeline found something that they multiple things actually that they probably bonded over after Bolton was out of the picture, which probably also included their foreign heritage. As Ed cooks the duck, Hazeline comes in and comments that she plucked the duck herself and then asks him if he would ever do that. Quote, "And you, Ed, have you ever plucked the feathers off a warbler, so to speak?" "I admit I have not," he replies demurely, wondering when on earth she thinks that he would have done such an activity. "Would you? Now?" She bursts into a shrill bleat of laughter. "No, not now, Petal. Hypothetically." His heartbeat slows to an average pace again. "Oh, yes, I suppose I would, if I had to survive. Yes, Petal, we'd all snap a neck of a bird to survive. But what about for pleasure?" "Kill for pleasure?" "No, no, good God! We're not macabre here, Ed. We don't kill for pleasure. We eat for pleasure, and we kill to eat, you see?" Hazeline eats half of the meal, seemingly enjoying it, while asking what's on everything, and pleasantly finishes the cup of coffee that Ed prepared for her. He believes that he has passed the test, as both Hazeline and Roderick are pleased. He cleans the kitchen and dishes, thinking that he might actually have a shot at this because she enjoyed the lunch well enough. He relates what he is doing to gambling because this whole thing and his food choices were a gamble. He kind of just picked random things that he thought would go well with the duck, and it turned out. He also is already thinking if this works out, he'd like to get Sayuri a nice anniversary plate that she'd be proud to show off. For dinner, he makes a kani salad with a real crab that he cooks and cleans himself, using his hands to tear it apart when he can't find a tool, but telling Roderick that he just feels like it's more personal to tear it apart so that he doesn't look so like underclass. He also made the dressing that Sayuri showed him and put panko crumbs on it for crunch. Also, something that Sayuri does, showing just how much he thinks of his wife during his day to day. Hazeline is very happy with dinner. He is shown to his bedroom and relaxes while thinking of a fantasy job that this could be. The next morning, as he rejoins Hazeline and Roderick, he can't help but compare everything that she lives with as normal and how different it is from his normal. He gets to the kitchen and makes himself some coffee. Hazeline joins and he makes her some coffee as well, seemingly passes a couple more tests that have to do with their interactions. The final test is a change from breakfast to Ed killing a chicken in a bathtub, to which Ed is not happy about, but he wants the money and the job. Hazeline opines, quote, "Remember, Ed, to eat is nothing but human nature. It's not a choice, it's an impulse, a necessity. To consume is to live. To feel that gnawing hunger means that we are alive, that we are in need of being filled. This chicken is sustenance for us today. Nothing more, nothing less. It has lived its life, and now it is time for it to sacrifice itself to give us the nourishment that we need. It's just the way of the animal kingdom, the natural food chain. It's how we are intended to live." Do you think that cavemen hesitated to kill their lunch? When he finally gets home after the weekend, his wife asks how it went, and Ed said he doesn't really know, but he's got money. His wife goes, "Look, you've got 2 million yen, yeah, but that's not a career." And Ed gets a quick impulse to rip his wife's head off. So, like, that's the first thing. So I saw his anger earlier, which he kind of dismissed his getting an interview. But here it is such an intense response of, "I want to rip my loving wife's head off," or the wife that I love's head off, that you're like, this is foreshadowing something, right? It is such an odd thing. It's so standoutish that you would think that it would turn into something, but it doesn't. Frustrated that she has no idea what he had to do to get the money, that impulse is quickly swallowed because he realizes that she doesn't know what he knows, and though he is reasonable with her, he can't help but see that he's not attracted to her and her attitude anymore. But he reasons that maybe he's hating her right now because it's easier than him hating himself. He expects his wife to apologize for her attitude, but the only thing she says to him is to leave the money on the table. She needs to pay for their daughter's daycare. Ed goes off frustrated, upset, and more cracks in their relationship has fallen through, and he drinks. As he's sitting at his laptop, he receives an email saying that he's got the job. His room and board will be paid for if he decides to come stay at the mansion, or if he stays at his home and wishes to commute, then she will send her driver out to collect him. Hazeline also says that she would like to celebrate his employment with a dinner out, just him. Not his wife and daughter. So Ed's going to the restaurant alone, and Sayuri's not even mad about that because she's like, well, somebody has to watch Kaori anyway, and I hope you have fun. She helps him prepare. He keeps randomly reading tones in her support as dismissive or upset when they really aren't there. And to me, it just feels like projection of his insecurities on Sayuri, as it also helps him justify the frustration that he's feeling towards her. He gets in the car with Roderick and Hazeline, and the place that they're going to is so exclusive that only 4 people can eat there at one time. The meat is also all exotic. As they go in, they get some champagne, and Ed notes that the night feels a little hazier and more dreamlike than normal. And again, you would think maybe something is going on here, maybe he's being drugged, maybe something, but no. It's just kind of adding weird vibes. So some of the things in here feel like they're done for like the oddity of it, and I think that there's probably a reason behind it, but they don't come through in this and they don't really build up for me. Now, at the restaurant, they start with beef, and Hazeline and Roderick are getting python. Ed is afraid of not liking the python, so he goes for a lobster instead. He watches the lobster squirm when they put it on the grill and feels disgusted, thinking of himself being put on a grill. Despite not wanting to try the python, he does when it comes because Hazeline offers it and he doesn't want to offend. He finds it very mild. Ed walks home after dinner and runs into some of his old colleagues that he tells about his night. They're super impressed that he was just at that really exclusive restaurant. He tells them about the python and lies that he liked it more than he did. They invite him to pachinko with them, and he turns them down so that he can go home. On his way, he picks up jewelry for Sayori and a toy for Kaori. At home, he gives them their gifts and tells Sayori about his dinner, albeit leaving out the stuff with the python. Her eyes are dazzling, and she is interested and congratulates Ed on what an amazing job he's already doing. That he got the job even. When he walks away, he thinks, wait, was she so into this because she is living a fantasy through me? Imagining the way that imagining the way that our life could be with this job and she could live richly? Maybe her and I aren't so different in that aspect after all. And this is such a weird thought that he's like, wait, is she only proud of me because like we could be rich and she's living a fantasy life through me? Again, I think that's projection because it's given no reason to think that with her. And even previously, like she offered to help him get a job. I think she's just happy that he has a job. And even if, this is before we get the reveal that she set him up to get this job, but she had previously offered to help him get a job. She wants stability for her family, for their child. And really, if he's working and especially away from the pachinko and the other things that get him in trouble, then it's less likely that he will do those things. So that's probably like he's not coming home bruised and with more bills. So that's probably a good thing too, even though he doesn't know that she knows. Anyway, I think Ed projects a lot because I think he's so self-aware of his own insecurities and what he's doing to other people. It's while he's talking to his wife here that he realizes that she is actually seemingly happy and that the tension that he has been feeling for the last couple of months doesn't seem to be there anymore. That his wife had maybe been stressful and curt with him, but it's not there. And maybe that's because the bills are paid. But he's insisting that it has to be because she's greedy and not that she is feeling more secure about their situation. The next week, Ed is waiting to be picked up by the driver when he is spotted by a Yakuza member. So this is another thing, is like he mentions that he's coming home with bruises and blood on him, that he is hiding the eviction notices as if they're probably like he's assuming that she hasn't gotten calls, that she hasn't seen any eviction notices, that she's not guessing what's going on when he's out at all hours of the night and not getting anything, that she is not checking the bank account. Like he is assuming all of these things because she's not calling him on it. And so then when she's like, yay, you have a job, yay, our bills are paid, he's assuming that she's only happy for him because she's greedy and not because stability, and she knows that he's been lying to her. It's a choice. And then he just acts like he doesn't know any of these things. The next week, Ed is waiting to be picked up by a driver when he's spotted by a Yakuza member who knows about his job and is demanding the next two payments next week because he can afford it now, right? With his new fancy job to a rich person. Ed asks how the driver met Hazeline, and it turns out that when Hazeline's husband died, she was donating equipment to people who could use it, and his own wife had the same issue as her husband. She offered to pay the bills and take care of medical treatment if he'd be her driver, and he agreed. He and his wife live on the premises, and he has a private nurse for her thanks to Hazeline. At the home, he's taught by a famous chef who used to work for Hazeline how to make her favorite lamb dish. During cleanup, he thinks that he sees human teeth in the garbage. Both the chef and the driver warn Ed to be careful and know what he's getting into with Hazeline before getting in too deep. Meanwhile, he asks Hazeline to advance him payment, and she agrees. Now he realizes he owes two different powerful people money. When he's walking around the estate, he finds the driver's home and his sick wife. The driver appears and warns Ed that Hazeline does not reward curiosity, and he should not be stumbling around the house investigating things, as he may find things that he doesn't want to see. Later that night, he is in his room when he hears a weird noise and is startled out of his sleep. He follows them to Hazeline's room to the image, quote, "That's when I see them. Two shapes moving in sync, the sound coming again. With great horror, he realizes what he's looking at and manages to swallow the sound of his gasp as he reels backward away from the door. With wide eyes, he silently scrabbles back into his bedroom, crawls under the sheets, and tries to make sense of what he has witnessed. Hazeline and Roderick, naked, hunched over like gargoyles in bed together, devouring the leftover lamb shanks, shoveling flesh and gristle and bone past their greasy lips with sticky, bloody hands and sharp teeth." This is such a weird thing because this never comes back. I mean, I guess you get the orgy dinner scene sort of later. I mean, it's more of an orgy, but they don't do this again. Never again. And they don't do anything like this ever again. Ed doesn't want to believe what he saw last night when he wakes up, because Hazeline and Roderick are acting completely normal in the morning. A friend of Hazeline's comes over, seemingly a business partner of hers. Conversation is sketchy. She is selling Hazeline a calf from an desperate American. Ed doesn't get good feelings about any of this and doesn't like Hazeline talking all sketchy like business in front of him, around him. Also, the business friend insults his marriage a bit, and he gets angry at that and has an angry flare. To cope with this weird and uncomfortable thing going on, he downloads a betting app and places a bet on a horse race, feeling empty afterwards. He goes home and tells his wife about his dream and plays with his daughter, finding a rhythm with his wife and being comfortable again. He loses at the horse race, and he doesn't know why he is betting again, because that's not the life that he wants. He worries about his daughter being mistreated for being mixed race. His wife says that she is not mixed, she is both, and kids will find anything to be mean about. If they're going to be mean to her about that, they're just mean because they're mean. But she is special, and Japan is becoming more open-minded, and social media is more worth worrying about having effect on Kaori than being seen as a gaijin. Now, going back to the estate, Hazeline every so often has kids over to use her yard and estate for camping. There are maybe 5 or 6 of them, and they're all under 18. Well, I guess Daisuke is there. I think it's Daisuke. And he's like 18, 19. The driver warns Ed that he should really think things over before getting too involved with Hazeline. Ed's very confused. He goes into the house to cook when he hears a child screaming. One of the girls had screamed because a bird was caught in a trap and they didn't want that bird to be hurt. The kids convince Hazeline to let the bird go. Then they go and tell spooky stories, first speaking of Yama Uma, since that's a nickname for Hazeline, and how there are 2 legends. One is a beautiful woman who lives in the wood and brings good luck, and the other is the same, but instead of luck, she consumes missing children. Then Hazeline talks about the Aztecs. So you're like, can we get any more on the nose from everything that's happened so far to now this, where she is literally saying people call her Yama Uma, and then she wants to talk about cannibalism. Ed, and you keep getting warned by the other employees. This is why I'm like, I gave it the benefit of the doubt that he was purposefully choosing to ignore the obvious, but it's like when she says it and he's like, nah. I mean, even if he was just like, "You're joking, right?" And it's that coping of like, you cannot be serious because you don't want to believe that it's true, And once somebody actually says it, now you have no way to be able to say no. Because like, as long as something is not outright said, as long as it's just, like, inferred, then you can reject it. But as soon as somebody crosses that line to it from inference to, like, this is how it is, you have to cope. Anyway, her telling the kids about the Aztecs goes something like this. Who did they kill? Koji asks, wide-eyed. Their own people? Well, it depends, Hazeline says. Often they would use slaves or prisoners of war. Sometimes someone would offer themselves up honorably, and the noblemen, who had the most money of them all, well, they would purchase humans to sacrifice, an act of charity for their people. The more high-ranked the warrior or victim, the more a prized sacrifice they would make, because the Aztecs believed that they held a strong life force. But what a waste of flesh to sacrifice them and leave the body to rot. So after they slaughtered them, they would go on to devour them, consuming their life force and strength. This made those noble Aztecs even more noble, because they believed that they were becoming what they had consumed. And the more noble and powerful they became, the closer to the gods they were. You see, what had started as a way of thanking the gods quickly turned to greed. In the end, more than being thankful for the life that had been given, they wanted to be gods themselves, and so it was the Aztecs that would hunt down victims, bring them to their banquets, and gobble them all up in the hopes of becoming living gods. Now, see, I think that that would have been an interesting area to go in if her husband had died, and then out of her own desperation to keep him near and her grief, she started eating him, or she did eat him, and it just developed from there, because people can do crazy things in grief. Grief is insane. I'm not saying that grief justifies cannibalism, but like, we never get an idea of why she started eating people. And if she was like so in love with Botan, it would make sense that if she was this crazed at the same time, she may be like, well, I can always have him with me if I consume him. Because one, she's talking about that here, and two, that is a common mindset among many people that consumed humans. Like, it's one thing that Jeffrey Dahmer did, not to like random Jeffrey Dahmer drop, but at least this one is accurate. I swear, I was watching friggin' Wendigoon play Lethal Company. I think it was with Meat Canyon, where one of them randomly mentioned Jeffrey Dahmer, and I'm like constantly watching videos, and there are a couple of things that show up in almost every video. Not all videos have all three of these things. It's like one of these things shows up randomly somewhere in anything, and it's Nazis stopped in their tracks, Jeffrey Dahmer. And most of the time, when Jeffrey Dahmer is mentioned, it is inaccurate. And I say this as a Jeffrey Dahmer scholar. I wrote my master's thesis on Jeff. I also have a book that is inspired by his life, with that is the perspective of the narrator. Anyway, that book isn't out yet. It's still a work in progress, but it does exist. Someday I'll return to it. Not right now, I'm working on Westies, but someday I'll return to it. The issue with that book, now I'm just tangenting, but the issue with that book is that I started, I think, getting overly critical of it, and so then I started overanalyzing what to add, and I needed to step away from it because I kept wanting to add more and more chapters that were technically not necessary to the story. But also there's so much work to be done on it that it's a little overwhelming. Anyway, hearing Hazeline talk about cannibalism as the Aztecs makes him very uncomfortable. He goes to a meat market to get something special for a dinner party that Hazeline is having. He eventually ends up with a bunch of baby sparrows that you cook and eat whole because they're so easy to cook and macabre enough that he thinks that Hazeline will like it. The dinner party is with the kids, by the way. A drunk man comes out and starts yelling at the butcher, Burakumin, which is described as a word from the Edo period used to reference those who worked with dead bodies. It isn't used at all anymore, and it's kind of considered an insult here, but they kind of move on from that. Also, during this bit, Ed shares that when he started dating Sayuri, he researched Japanese history to better understand his wife and her culture. After getting home, Hazeline's guest is there, and it's this American teen girl named Ellie. He hears sawing and is going to go out about he hears sawing happening somewhere around the estate, and is going to go and ask about it, but has to go prep the sparrows instead. He starts by taking one out of the bag in interest to see how much meat is on it, and so he just starts pulling apart the little body. Ellie and Hazeline come in, and Hazeline digs through the body to find the wishbone, urging Ed to make a wish with her. He wishes for Hazeline's life. The bone breaks evenly, signifying both of their wishes will come true. Now, it's at this point where I was looking at the anger that Ed was showing, this wish that was going to be a monkey's paw. I mean, obviously, I feel like it's obvious it would be a monkey's paw. That would end with like his wife being murdered, and then he and Hazeline would take Kaori because Hazeline wanted a child but was unable because she was infertile. And so, like, he's like, I want her life. So then it forcing this terrible situation on him, or him ending up killing Hazeline, taking her stuff after falling into like the stuff that she's done and like consuming her to go with the Aztec thing that was just talked about. Like, there were different ways I was looking at this and the things that it was dropping to see where it was going to go. Spoiler, neither of those directions is where this goes. Tell me what your theories are at this point if you want in the comments down below, and then we're gonna keep going. When dinner time comes around, Ellie doesn't want to eat the sparrows because they're just like full little baby birds with their beaks and their eyes, and she doesn't like looking at it. Hazeline loses her temper. Quote, Ellie, petal. She spits out the term of endearment. You aren't in America, are you? And you know why that is, don't you? Because your parents are sick to fucking death of you and need some extra cash so your mum can get decent medical care because that beast of a president insists on charging his citizens to keep them alive. Do you understand? Ellie's eyes became watery, and Ed feels a stab of pity for the girl. So you'd better buck up and stop being so difficult, or I'll ship you back, and your mother can drop back down to the bottom of the hospital wait list. Because Ellie is not interested in eating still, and now she's just crying, Hazeline sends Ellie to bed without eating and asks Ed to sit down and finish the meal with her. He does, and he finds himself surprised at how much he likes the sparrow. And this is another reason why I thought this would go in the direction of him either taking over Hazeline's position or being brought into Hazeline's life in that way. Hazeline is in a better mood now since he complied, though she is still upset and says this is why she should only work with her charity. People are so ungrateful and bratty, and she is going to go to bed. Hungry in the middle of the night, Ed goes to make popcorn. While he's waiting, he hears a beeping of a fridge somewhere, but none of the fridges in the kitchen are making that sound. Ellie appears, and she agrees to help him find the source of the sound if he'll make her popcorn. He agrees. She says the popcorn sounds like it's coming from below, and Ed remembers that there is a basement. The two of them go down and find the fridge beeping there. The smell inside is horrible, and some of the meat has already defrosted. Ellie heads back upstairs, disgusted by the smell. Ed unplugs the fridge and plugs it back in. The beeping is stopped. The fridge is working again. He reaches inside to turn the dial as far down as he can to hopefully try and salvage whatever is inside, though it's probably already all bad. And they'll need to toss the majority of it tomorrow. It's strange in color, in smell, in everything about it, and even the cuts. He has no idea what it is. He washes his hand because it's all slimy. It's like, how is it slimy? They have to have those vacuum sealed or something, right? But he washes his slimy hand and then goes to bed. In the morning, Ed informs Hazeline of the freezer issue, and she is so distraught. She is beyond inconsolable that her meat is ruined. It's a special meat for the soiree that she throws yearly, and she collects that meat over time, and it can't just easily be replaced. She is going to send Ed to a carcass auction, but she also spends the rest of the chapter mourning the loss of that meat. At the auction, Ed is told to order a pig, the best pig that he can get, and he does. And he finds the same excitement in the silent auction as he does in betting. When he goes to collect his pig, he is taken somewhere else by somebody in a pig costume saying, hey, you're here for Hazeline, right? We have something special for you. When he gets to this spot off to the side, he runs into Ikagi in the private club, and Ikagi punches him in the face for outbidding him on that pig. His escort then comes back with a special order of meat for Hazeline, and Ed is confused why she needs the special order of meat when he literally just got like one of the best pigs, if not the best pig in Japan that anybody could buy right now. When Ed returns to the house, Ellie is gone. Hazeline said that she just wasn't a good fit for this program, and Ed agrees, saying that he isn't surprised that she got sent home. Hazeline then gives Ed her special personal cookbook and recipes that she likes. It's filled with all sorts of strange things like, quote, creamed sole, battered brain and rice, bone marrow broth, crispy skin with dipping sauce, boiled lung and pickled veg, deviled kidneys, brave braised heart. She wants him to make something special tonight, so he's gonna smoke some ribs. He also sees that the driver is putting something large into the car, says it looks like a body bag. Edward. The girl is missing. Body bag. Weird cookbook. You cannot get all of these things. Yama Uma. Cannibalism Aztecs. You cannot get all of these hints and be like, that's just a weird shaped bag. It looks like a body bag, but it can't be. It can't be. Everyone laughs. When Nakamura returns, he's got a liver in a Ziploc bag to be used as the appetizer for tonight to go along with the ribs. Ed asks what sort of meat it is. It's too dark to be pork, and he is told that it is imported from America. Edward. Where was Ellie from? America. They were talking about a calf from America when she had her weird guest over the other night. Bro, you just saw a body bag, and the dude that took the body bag came back with a liver and said it's from an American import. Bruh! Also, Hazeline says that she does well with this. Also, Hazeline says if he does well making this dinner, then she'll have him cater the upcoming soiree, which she offers to pay him triple his normal payment. Ed accepts. He and the driver go out to the smoker together, and Ed opens up about how he got into gambling debt, and it's just not good for him, but he liked how it made him feel. Nakamura asks what he is running from, that he had to do, gambling to feel good, and asks if it was like a bad marriage, like what's up, and Ed says, quote, no, not at all. My wife, Sayuri, she's great, the best, really. I lost my job, and I was a new father, and I felt like I was failing. I felt like I was a bad dad, a bad partner, and I had no clue what I was doing in any aspect of my life. I told Sayuri that I was out looking for jobs, and at the start, I was. But every time I walked past a parlor, I ended up going in. I thought of it as a little reward after dropping off my resume, as a sort of pick-me-up when I was feeling bad about myself or anxious. Eventually, I stopped handing out my resume altogether, and just sat in a parlor all day long playing, pretending that I was applying for jobs. It was easier than handling more constant rejection. They'd see me, a white man, and think I couldn't speak Japanese or understand the customs. I'm too much of a risky hire out there, and when I was waiting to see if I'd won, it was the only time that I felt any actual emotion other than shame or fear. Majide. Nakamura shakes his head sorrowfully, stamping out his cigarette and immediately lighting another one. You are burdened by your own expectations for yourself. It sounds like your wife did not put these pressures on you, but that you put them on yourself. Ed says that he thinks that their lifestyle is short of what Sayuri had wanted when she married him, and that they'd be better off if Kaori wasn't born, and he feels bad even thinking that. Nakamura asks what lifestyle he's even talking about, and Ed answers, a lifestyle like this, gesturing behind him to the beautiful house. Nobody lives like this, Nakamura scoffs, not even Hazeline. You think she's happy here? She seems happy, Ed says. The woman has been in mourning since her husband died. I heard her weep almost every day for the first few months after I moved in. I think she felt kindred to me in a way, because she could not have a baby, and Suki and I won't have a baby. It must be hard for her to see you go home every day to your wife and child, the life that she'd been robbed of. Everyone has their struggles, just some are better at hiding them. Your wife probably just wants a kind husband who spends time with her and helps with the child. You're making good money here. With Hazeline? Yes. Then you're doing enough. The only thing stopping you from being a great husband, a great father, is your own self-doubt. If you start believing in yourself, appreciate what you have day to day, you won't need the rush of gambling. The second cigarette is stubbed out. So again, it gives me the feeling that it's going to turn into something bad happening to Sayuri, and then they take in Kaori because Hazeline wanted a child and couldn't have one, and he wished to have Hazeline's life. And what better way to have Hazeline's life than end up wrapped up in that way and having him eat his own wife? Because she would. She would. The two continue to bond before Nakamura goes off to clean the car. Hazeline's friends arrive, and they're both rich white women who complement the house. One gives Ed a gift to take to Roderick to put with the other precious jewelry, and he does. While Roderick is putting the piece away, Ed sees teeth earrings that he is assured are animals and a finger bone that must be a bone that belongs to an animal? Edward. Edward! Roderick tells Ed about the cannibals of the Caribbean, the Kalinago. And yeah, this is only the second story someone in this house has said relating to Hazeline that has to do with cannibals, and then says that Hazeline admires that tribe. Edward! Ask some questions, Edward, or instead of being Edward Cook, you will be Edward Cooked. Well, you don't have to ask other people questions because that might get you cooked faster, but at least ask yourself some questions. The rest of the guests arrive, food is served. The appetizers basically make them orgasm, the liver of the 16-year-old girl. And it's called the main feature of the meal, which confuses Ed when he's got pig ribs that are cooking as the main course. Hazeline says that the meat came from Mississippi, and Ed is like, wait a second, that missing girl was from Mississippi. No, that can't be right. I'm crazy to make that connection. Hazeline waits for Ed to say something about the Mississippi thing, but he doesn't. They then move on to the main dish and congratulate themselves on being such good philanthropists, helping single mothers when one of the guests says, just accept what we are and stop pretending to be something that we're not, which is a goodier good person. You can feel Hazeline's eye twitch at being criticized when she's like, we're such good people. And the other person's like, no, we're not. We can just say that we're not. We don't have to pretend. We all know what we are. So, things get a little awkward, and the American senator guest that is there quickly moves things along to get them drinking and to chill things out. Oh, and Hazeline took Ed aside and asks him how he really got the black eye that he has, because he came back from the carcass auction with a black eye, and he tells her the truth about being involved with the Yakuza, and she's like, I will pay off your debt, and you can just work for me until your debt is paid off. He agrees and feels so good about it, but you know that we're all over here shaking our head because he just made a deal with a cannibal. Who said that she's going to go meet Lucifer, by the way? Remember, throwback that says when she dies and meets Lucifer, she wants to be fat and plump. So she's outright saying, I'm a hell of a person. Ed didn't even ask her why she thought she was going to hell. Now that the debt to the Yakuza is off his shoulders, he is worried that he is going to gamble again and tells Nakamura. Nakamura says that he should tell his wife about his trouble and get actual help because it's going to be easier with the support system than trying to do it on his own. He does, when he goes home, he does tell his wife. His wife is upset about all of the lying, but is at least relieved to hear that the Yakuza are no longer going to be involved and she doesn't have to worry about their daughter. She asks what caused him to gamble, leading to, quote, I guess I just felt like a failure for losing my job. I felt like I wasn't providing for you in any way you deserve. I don't know how to behave around Kiori. It makes me feel like I'm not cut out to be a dad. He expects some sort of sympathy at this, but instead, his wife gives a loud tsk. No parent knows how to behave the first time around. You think I knew how to be a mother immediately? I never really thought about it. I guess I just assumed that it came naturally to you, that you had a sort of parental instinct that I was missing. You make it seem so easy, Ed says. Well, it isn't. It's hard. I have no clue what I'm doing, and some days I want to lock myself in a room and cry because I don't know what my daughter wants, what she is thinking, if she even likes me. Sayuri says, her eyes filling with tears. And you think that you're the only one feeling that way and get to run off and hide at gambling dens instead? Lying to me about it all and still clinging on to so much pride that you rebuted my attempts to help you get a job? She sounds vicious, a rage in her that he has not experienced before. I never knew that you felt that way. I thought that it was just me. Well, it's not. And maybe if you had bothered to ask me to communicate or to help me out a bit, neither of us would have felt like we were struggling, she sniffs, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Sayuri agrees to help him manage his impulses and to take over the finances, so he's going to give her all of the money that he makes so that she can do the budgeting. Then she ends the conversation with a warning, quote, nobody with that much money or power does something purely from the goodness of their heart. Remember, she may be after something too. Sayuri, The fact that you set him up to be with this woman, to work for this woman, that you know the rumors of, like Sayuri is aware of the rumors of Yama Uma, and that some people just disappear when they work for her and other people get super rich. The fact that she knows this, and that she set him up because of this. Because she's like, well, we either get rich or he dies. Like, who freaking cares either way? She should be more, if she cares about him and she is honest about any of this, then she should be trying to, like, that line is so unnecessary. Again, it's another red herring that if you think logically about it, it doesn't make sense, because it's warning that she's a bad person, that she's going to want something from him, but she already knows what that is. So if she wanted him to step back from it, then she would tell him straight up, not whatever this is. This is what I don't like. When a book pretends to be coy, when characters, and it's not even like she's being devious, because again, what is her motivation for doing this? If she wants to help him, okay. If she wants to pretend to help him because she is so angry at him for lying to her, if she feels bad that she set him up because she was angry and now he's honest, so she's like, we could be a team again. Like, we should see these motivations behind the way that she is acting, and we don't. We just see her trying to throw this red herring of like warning him and acting coy when she knows exactly what's going on, and she wouldn't need to say this because he's not being sussy. He's not asking. She's throwing this information out when he's not even a threat anywhere. So like, and this comment comes out because of the mention of Hazeline paying off the debt of her employees out of the kindness of her heart is what Ed guessed. She's a philanthropist. So if Sayori wanted to pretend to be coy, she could have just said, well, she does that probably because she's a philanthropist. She has all of this money. She knows suffering from the loss of her husband. Like, there are different things that she could say instead of this, which hints at, hey, Ed, get out of there. She either needs to say, hey, Ed, get out of there, or let it go, because this doesn't make sense. Nakamura and Ed are then eating curry buns while talking about how nice it is to live at the mansion, and Ed is told that he could likely move his family in there too, which again, could have hinted at something. I think the ending chose to try to just be startling instead of like following an idea here, and you're going to see why. And when we get there, when we get to the ending and you see how it goes, I want to know what you think with the way that it built up and the hints that it dropped, and then like where it goes, and what you think that it might have been leading to, what your theories were, and then how you feel about the ending that it actually has. Because you're going to hear my opinion. You're already hearing my opinion. Hazeline drops into Ed's house unexpectedly. She brings gifts, and he feels like she is overstepping. And he keeps going, for some strange reason, I want to keep my work life and my home life separate, while also describing his boss as looking scary while holding his daughter. It's just very laid on thick in this chapter of how wrong it wants you to feel. To the point that when Hazeline is pretty much strong-arming Ed to go out with her to her charity headquarters, the chapter ends on, quote, Ed's not sure why, but he feels a stab of fear about stepping into the car, sure that wherever it is Hazeline is taking him, it will not be what he is expecting. That is such an on-the-nose thing in the narration that could have just been cut, and it could have just ended with her taking him out the door, because the tension was already there. The resistance was already there. His assumption that she is dangerous is already there, and that this charity is a cover for something is already there. Ed then goes into the charity place where there are 5 kids who visited, that were doing the camping thing, and he is given a tour. One of them has just turned 18, and Hazeline says that when they turn 18, they move out on to become interns, and she tries to fill the space up with another child. She says that the charity workers change about every 2 years for how they want stability and something long-term, and this just doesn't work out long-term, so she never tells the depths of the charity to any of those charity workers, but her most trusted staff, like Ed, can know the ins and outs of the charity. He asks what that means, and seems like she's going to tell him, but this bit ends with, quote, Ed follows, even though his gut is telling him that whatever he is about to find out, it's not something he wants to know. Again, this is a line that's so on the nose and so unnecessary because the information is already there in the implications leading up to the ending of the scene, that this is just like, oh yeah, for you stupid people in the back, let me just, in case you missed it, something sussy is about to happen. What Hazeline tells Ed is that she buys children from single mothers desperate to get rid of them because of the social and or financial ruin that happens to single mothers in Japan. Usually both, since single motherhood in Japan makes them into social pariahs. She promises the mothers to give the children the best lives they can have growing up, but the mothers aren't ever allowed to contact their children, and she tells all of the kids that she takes in that their parents died and they're just orphans. Ed asks what happens after they turn 18, and Hazeline changes the subject to ask Ed to cook for her dinner party at 3 times the rate and a chance at networking with other famous rich people that could make his entire future. Just Ed agrees. Ed completely forgets what he was just asking and is like, hell yeah. On Christmas, Hazeline gave them all gifts, and the necklace that she gave Sayori looks like there is blood in it. Just another, it's so obvious that it feels like a red herring. Like it lays it on so thick that you're like, the cannibalism cannot be the twist, right? Because it's so obvious in every description of everything, especially when it refuses to acknowledge it while also acknowledging it. I know this is said that Ed is overlooking things right in front of his face, but this is just too much. And even his wife is his wife is in on whatever. I don't know if his wife knows the full extent of things, just that people disappear, but she knows that people die. And her husband was involved with the Yakuza. It's not like organized crime is not acknowledged in this story. But nobody is saying anything or having any reaction to any of this when you'd at least think like, oh, maybe they'll talk about that necklace. Maybe they'll talk about his boss showing up. Maybe she'll ask him about the charity. They don't actually discuss any of these things that you think would be discussed, which leans more to me on the thriller suspense side of things, because then it is more focused on like the weirdness and when is the shoe going to drop, as opposed to all of the things in this book that should actually come up, because it would change the trajectory of everybody's life if they would just talk about it. But no, every scene keeps kneecapping interactions. Like even they go, oh, looks like there's blood in that, end scene. I've talked about this before in other books too, where I can't stand it. Because that's not a natural place for the scene to end. Somebody would say something, you're noticing it, you're going to talk to your spouse, whom you trust, whom you love, about this stuff. Even with the charity thing, she'd ask like, oh, what's Hazeline's charity like? Did Ed just completely forget asking about what happened to the kids and then remember when he walked away? Did he not want to offend her by pushing it because he wanted that 3 million yen? And so then he's like, I'm not going to push my luck by asking, even though it's really sussy. Plus, that's just me overthinking, right? Like, the pieces are there to make this work, but it doesn't do that. It just cuts it off from not having an interaction, for not having a thought, and then it's like, you're not going to ask questions, right? Because nobody in here asks questions. So Ed is prepping for the big dinner party, which happens, I think, in January, which is why we had to have Christmas, because now it's January. And he is also worried about doing it well. He asks Nakamura how previous parties went, and Nakamura says he doesn't know because he doesn't go, he doesn't eat anything from the parties, and then excuses himself as quickly as humanly possible from the scene, because nobody can, talk to him. No. And Ed should just be like, hey, wait, Nakamura, come back, Nakamura! Since Nakamura won't talk to him, he then goes to Roderick to ask about the meat, and Roderick refuses. So he goes to Hazeline, who is like the person who should be able to tell him about the party, about the meat, about what he's cooking, about expectations, and Hazeline refuses to tell him at first. He refuses to cook without knowing what it is that he's cooking, and she says, well, you can't do that because you owe me so much freaking money, so you better freaking do it. And he says if he really wants to know, she will tell him. So, she threatens him before she's also like, but if you really want to know, instead of, making him earn it further, she just goes, there's no going back once you know, BT dubs. But it's not like she's been hiding it this entire time. She's been doing, double fisting human remains while winking at him in rotation. That's how sussy she is. So she legitimately has to lay it out so hard for him because he will not believe it. When he finally does, he calls her sick and she lectures him back. Quote, no, Ed, do you know what's sick? Society letting children and mother rot through poverty. Mothers being unable to feed their babies. People dying because they cannot afford health care. Children begging or becoming drug mules because they don't have the money to keep up with their school friends. Society is sick. The government is sick. I'm just the only person doing something about it. You're mad, Ed whispers. You're all fucking mad. Why? Because I pay mothers to ensure that they have a good, safe life? Because I spoil the children rotten? Would you not rather live 20 years in absolute luxury than 60 years where every single day is a struggle? Where you feel like a burden to your mother, a money leech? I'm doing God's work here, Ed. But you're killing people. People with their whole lives ahead of them. Wrong! The only reason they have a life worth looking forward to is because of the upbringing I have gifted them. If I left them where they were born, they would have nothing but decades of struggle or criminality to look forward to, and I'm not stealing something from them if I am the one who gave it to them first place. I gift them education and opportunity and mindful exploration, all things that they never experience without me. And then you kill them, Ed says bitterly, tears in his eyes. Everyone dies one day, Ed. You will die, I will die, and all we can hope for is a quick and painless death, which is exactly what these young adults are receiving. Utterly painless. They don't even know what's happening. A quick little jab in their sleep and away with the fairies. Another priceless gift from me to them. They say money can't buy happiness, but it can, Ed. It buys happiness, it buys comfort, it buys pleasures and chances. I gifted them total escapism from the terrible lives that they were destined for, and these children whose parents are devoid of any maternal instinct, you understand. They're not ripped from their weeping mother's loving cradle arms. They are tossed at us in exchange for cash and closed mouths, sold like a pair of tired, battered, second-hand shoes. Expensive to fix up, and not worth the trouble. I gave them a life of stability, comfort, love, and luxury, and in return they satiate me. They become a part of me. They nourish me and love me back forever. I imagine if I had my own child, perhaps I would feel more fulfilled, but this seems to fill the void inside of me. The thought of them rotting in the ground is obscene to me, absolutely horrific. Why would I bury someone I have cared for 20 years? Why would I, when I could have them with me always? You sound batshit crazy, Ed hisses, still glancing at the door and trying to work out a way to escape. Roderick is standing by it, straight and tall, utterly emotionless. Well, Ed Petal, Hazeline spits out the term of endearment so close to Ed's face that he has to wipe a speck of saliva away. Seeing as you don't seem to care for the truth or for my personal explanation, let me give it to you plainly and simply in a way that even your embarrassingly decrepit little brain can understand. It is cheaper to eat the poor than to feed them. So this rant here feels like it goes all over the place. It wants to be a comment about the societal rejection to children, to people in need, to poor people in general, because the money thing is not specifically single mothers only. However, it also wants to make it into, well, it's about them being a part of me. And I think that this would have been much stronger, and it could have shown even Greedy in just like wanting to keep the people that she has all to herself, which is sort of there, but sort of not there, because then she makes it about other people's greed, and that's why she's doing it. When she could be looking at it as, well, I mean, she is going on about saving them from a life of misery, but without me, they'd go out into the world and they would suffer because I have protected them for 20 years. But then it's also like her own fear of losing them in the same way that well, not in the same way, but in a way like she lost Botan. And again, that's why I think maybe she ate Botan, but it never actually says or implies that she ate Botan, just that she doesn't want to bury these kids. So that's my inference. But if she's like, I raise these kids, I don't want them to go off and then like never talk to me again, so I eat them so they never leave. That would make sense. And I'm protecting them from the horrors of the world and keeping them near me because I deserve them for raising them. They should not be taken away. But then you also have it going back to like her consuming and wanting to massively eat being a response to the Japanese culture of rejection that she faced because of being a mixed race person and her starving herself so that she could fit into a mold. Like, we have too many ideas here going into Hazeline, I feel, when you could pick some things that then drove her to insanity. And so I think in, like, her use of this, there were too many things that the author was trying to get across in the greed when Hazeline actually just needed a thing to motivate her. And she could have her, like, you can be inspired, influenced by multiple things that happen in your life, but these all feel conflicting. And then she's like referencing how she admires cannibalistic whatever and brutal cannibalism at that, instead of focusing on the aspects of connectivity, of family, of spiritualism that maybe she felt by consuming and letting her be crazy like that. But this is something else entirely. And then she's involving rich people in this and having other rich people, and then also being weird and like eating exotic meat. So it's like about her being exotic, but also having her make this be a social point. I just don't think that these things connect very well for a character. These feel like different characters. Anyway, let me know what you think. Ed doesn't want to go along with this now that he knows that what he'll be making for the party is human, but he is threatened if he stops or leaves. He realizes that he has no power here, and Ed asks Roderick what he thinks about any of this, that he can't think that it's normal. When Roderick said that he agrees that Hazeline is helping the kids, Ed calls him delusional, and Roderick responds, Doesn't love blind us all? He asks. Ed snorts miserably. Perhaps not a love of Hazeline, Roderick continues, but a love of life, of money, of opportunity. Everyone is blinded by something they love, even you, Ed. Ed allows Roderick to silently walk him to the car, which he enters forlornly before closing the door. So again, we have another thing where it wants to say people will do crazy things for love. People will turn a blind eye for love, which I think that that's a thing that fits into this story and into these ideas, because you also have like Ed, who's been willing to do like to turn theoretically, I mean, in my headcanon of how I wish this would have gone, Ed was willing to turn a blind eye to all of these signs, which I wish that Roderick would have called him on and been like, you saw this, we showed you this, we talked about this well before we told you straight up what was going on, and you accepted it for your wife and your daughter. Are you not as bad as you say Hazeline is? Because you could not be ignorant to all of these things when they were laid out in front of you. So I wish that he had gotten to do that, and that Ed had been called greedy just for doing that he was blinded by his love for his family, because I think that would make sense, and it would make him get this a little bit more. And that Roderick goes along with Hazeline because he loves Hazeline. And so, like, you could show it in these different things, but that's not what happens. And I think it weakens the theming going on here. So then Ed returns home feeling sick and helpless because he knows that he has to do something, anything. He knows, because he knows that he would do anything to keep his daughter safe, including this. So even if he wants to be mad at Nakamura for not warning him, which he did multiple times, or not mad at Nakamura for the compliance in the slaughtering of these children, he's in the same situation where he's like, I want to take care of my daughter. I want to make sure that she has everything she needs and is never without. And so, like, I'm going to do it. And I think, like, knowing and choosing to do something like this is a more powerful statement than, like, having him be ignorant and, like, no, no. I just think that it could have been done better. And I do think that this is a novel by somebody still developing their skills. At least that's how it comes off to me. At work at the night of the party, Ed is internally arguing with himself that he doesn't want to be this guy. He wants to escape, but he also does want to be this guy and does want to live this life in this mansion. And isn't he already living this life? Because he is living in this mansion and is making all of this money and keeping up with his payments. He's at least somewhat that guy, because look at the life he's living. Rich and powerful people of different roles and genders, nationalities, etc., are all gathered at this party, kind of showing corruption across the board and how common it is that it's not just like one person or one job or one country, but like everybody. Everybody is able to be greedy and disgusting, and that's what this is. This is more getting at, in my opinion. They schmooze and network and also hiss under their under their breaths nice words to show that they don't actually like something. So it's obvious that they don't like something, but they're pretending to be polite. So that's where like the hissing comes from. Ed comments, quote, "It's a peacocking of power and connections, everyone angling to see who at the table can benefit them in some way, forging false friendships to cover hidden desires." Ed wonders if they all know what they sound like, corrupt and nepotistic. Is this what true wealth brings? Humans acting as gods in others' futures? Ed is invited to join the table of cannibals just as Roderick brings out the special dish that Ed knows he didn't have a part in making, and so he knows that it's at least a person. He knows what it is, doesn't want to eat it, but every attempt to escape is either snapped at by Hazeline or interrupted by somebody talking about a business opportunity like Ed opening his own restaurant in Tokyo where he will be top of the line, where he will become famous, and he will have these ideas. You know, this is an investor guy. He's like, I will put money in you. You can make whatever you freaking want. You will never want for anything. And so Ed is blinded by the information. And so Ed just sits down and he looks at the meat that is in front of him and he sees that there is a dragon tattoo on the skin, and it is Ikagi, the Yakuza guy that he owed a lot of money. And he relates that to the sawing sounds he heard days ago. So even before Hazeline took over his debt, she had already killed this guy. Ed still wants to say no. Hazeline tells him that he is no better than they are. He knows what is going on. And another push from an investor brings Ed to join them at the table. After the meal, everyone is outside in the garden doing drugs, drinking. They're all wearing robes that they were given by Hazeline. And they are chowing down on a trow of Ed's cooking, like a literal trow. Are we bringing back the pigs that were in the freaking other book where all of the scientists, I can't even remember what it was called at this point, but I would recognize it if I saw it. But yeah, they are eating out of a trough for some reason. It might be more unsubtle messaging. Hazeline declares that they play a game of spin the bone and to see who gets eaten next year. Now, this seems like a brand new thing that has happened because all of the investors are like, what the fuck? Which also, it can't be that weird different because people have gone missing around her before. But you would think that there would be rumors of this if she had turned on any of the other rich people before to like eat them, or they would be in on this that they eat the help and they would be laughing because they know that it's a setup. Anyway, everybody there is surprised that she wants to turn on people when I don't think that it should be that surprising to them. And but she has to yell at them to shut the fuck up and sit down for the bone spin game. It doesn't make sense. This is where we're getting to like, I feel like this just wants to be shocking. It's not even making sense anymore because all the bigwigs are protesting, and because they're protesting, Hazeline calls them all greedy animals who have taken part in this, so now they will play her freaking game, and she also demands that Ed sits down with them, and you can guess who the bone lands on. So why did we end here? Why is this where it went? Because that's not, none of that ending scene even freaking makes sense. Why did she feed him the guy that he owed money? Why did she suddenly make this into a thing that she's going to eat him next year? Because I mean, obviously she was already going to turn on him because he was proving that he was not loyal, but he actually was loyal because she got him to eat the meat and now she could use that against him. I think it wanted to be shocking. And then you get into the epilogue. Okay, and this shows Hanami, who is the woman who runs Hazeline's charity, who we are told has only worked there for less than 2 years because she said that the charity workers don't stay there for more than 2 years because they want something more stable. So none of them know what's going on in Hazeline's philanthropy. That is what we are told. But Hanami actually knows Sayuri from her previous job. And Hanami has come in to the coffee shop that Sayuri works at and is asking how things are. And she says, you know, her husband is having a hard time getting a job and is lying to her, and says that she checked the accounts and that he emptied the bank accounts that were for their daughter. And so then Hanami is like, well, I work for a woman. She's kind of dodgy. People call her Yama Uma. And you know what that means. And there are rumors that people either get rich working for her or they disappear working for her. And it's kind of a coin toss which way that goes. And Sayuri is like, well, could you get my husband a job with your boss? That would be cool. But we have to make it look like it was his idea, because otherwise he won't accept it. And so that was all set up by Sayuri, with her knowing about the rumors about Hazeline and sending her husband into that, and pretending she didn't know any of that in any of those cases. But you would think if she knew this, and she even knew that Hazeline ate children specifically, because children go missing, because that is the Yama Uma lore, that she would worry about that woman holding her child. But when that woman came, there was no comment from Sayuri about Hazeline holding Kaori. Like, this does not feel like what the ending should have been. From what was laid out, there were certain things that don't feel like they should have happened. And in the final bit of the story, it says, quote, if Ed was willing to sacrifice their marriage and their daughter's future for male pride and a gambling problem, Sayori was willing to give him up. The irony of marrying with the end goal of a financially stable life and ending up with a husband who was draining her bank balance more than if she had been a single mother was not lost on her. She didn't think that it was greedy of her to essentially set her husband up with a dodgy boss in exchange for cash. After all, don't you have to have an excess of something before you can be greedy? And that's the end. And I really absolutely hate this ending on so many levels. Not just from what I mentioned, where it doesn't make any sense for where this is going up. And suddenly, oh, we're just going to say that Sayori is a terrible person, even though she's like, she may have been frustrated with her husband, but being frustrated with your partner when they're lying to you, when they're hiding things from you, when you know that they are doing things behind your back because you've seen the evidence. Like, it's normal to be frustrated about something in a relationship, but then when he's like, okay, I'm trying, I've got this job, I'm getting stuff paid up, and I'm telling you about my gambling problem, and she's like, watch out, nobody does what Hazeline just did for you without wanting something else out of the kindness of their hearts. Like, that should have been her changing her mind and trying to save him. But this epilogue just takes you back to before, when she is still angry and resentful, and like her mentioning that warning never turns into anything. Like, you never see it develop, which you'd think that you would, because you're about to lose your husband who is making sure that you're paid for. And she could have been like, oh shit, I was in such a bad place because of what he was doing, and now, oh shit, I made a mistake. But we don't see any of that, and it could have been so good to see them as a couple, and then like that is how they end up, with Ed's wish coming true, and we never know what Hazeline's wish was, which could have been to be reunited with her husband, quite honestly, which could have ended with him taking over Hazeline's life, because he kills Hazeline, then he has to take over, and then he has to be the one trafficking children to keep stuff going because of this ring, and blah 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 blah, and then Sayuri and Kaori are in there, and like, you could, it would have made more sense. He could have gotten greedy, ended up too much into this, and it would have made more sense than whatever this is, and could have had this shown this relationship of that is natural for spouses to fight, to get frustrated, and then to fix things when they're honest with each other and able to respect each other. And I think that's, it just pisses me off. It pisses me off so much that it's just like, for the shock, for the twist, when it doesn't make any sense. So genre, well, when it makes less sense than the hints throughout the book, and it's just cheaper. Anyway, audience slash genre, I'd say adult, slow burn, uncomfortable suspense. It reminded me a lot of The Dark Butler by Lauren Chambers, where that was somebody who was also down on their luck. They got pulled into being the butler for a kind of sketchy guy who, I really liked the way that Lauren Chambers had written the manipulation and the sort of magical amount of suggestion of the guy being like, do this, and the guy couldn't, the butler guy couldn't help but just do it. And I was hoping that that would go somewhere, because that entire book was so full of tension of like the shoe waiting to drop. The problem was the shoe never dropped in that book. And that was, I think, my biggest issue. Also, the ending kind of just like went into bizarro land for me. But the tension in that book was very much like the tension in this book, except I think Lauren Chambers did it better, because it was less on the nose and it was more sussy. It was more like, okay, he had the rich guy in that had more charm and subtlety than Hazeline had. Yeah. Hook. At approximately 25%, what we know is Edward Cook is a British man who came to Japan 8 years ago. He is married, has a toddler, and also has a massive in debt incurred from a gambling addiction he started after he lost his job during a virus shutdown. He is too proud to accept his wife's help in getting a new job and continues to lie to her, and he has been out of work for 6 months while struggling with a gambling addiction that has only increased and got him involved with the Yakuza in order to get higher payouts that actually obviously ended in bigger debts. On the cusp of eviction and desperate, he sees an ad for a private chef that seemingly pays very well because it's a wealthy businesswoman. Even the 2-day interview offers him 2 million yen, which is so he needs it. Though he is not a chef, he decides to fake it for the opportunity. It's not like he doesn't know how to lie. It's not like he doesn't know how to lie. He's been doing it to his wife for 6 months. When he gets there, the vibes are strange, the house is huge, and the woman is well known in the media for notorious reasons of being a hafu and marrying a very sought after Japanese businessman. Everyone has called her a gold digger. Now, some strange things occur, but it's seemingly going well. And at this point, it's just building tension. A majority of the book is building tension and then being on the nose, as you may have noticed. You know something is going to happen between the setup and the word choices, but the question is when that thing is going to happen. I mean, even then, you know that cannibalism is going to come up between the word choices, the descriptions, the story choices. It's going to happen. Just when is it going to happen and how is he going to respond to it? At this point, at the 25% point, I think it's building the tension as Ed. I thought it was building the tension for Ed is not only temporarily there, but that he is also already on high alert due to his business with the Yakuza. And I got the feeling that it wants to lull him into some form of trust and security. Also, based on food focus and the genre, I think that the food would take a turn. I think that's obvious. And who was going to push it was anyone's guess because it may not have been Hazeline. And again, that goes into like being so obvious that it could have been a red herring that she was going to push it. At 25%, I also thought that there was more to Botan than we were getting, but Botan didn't really do anything. Botan was just how she got money, how she was notorious, and then she loved her husband. And that's all that we learn. And he feels like such a big part. And also with her ending speech on like people leaving her and how consuming them keeps them with her, it feels like that was the turning point for how she became a cannibal. And we never get into what started this, other than her saying she was skinny growing up. And when her husband died, she decided she was going to enjoy food. And that just like, I don't think that really works without more explanation for how that connects to the spirituality of consuming. I mean, she didn't even raise Ellie. That was the other thing is she's talking about like, I raised these kids for 20 years and I don't want it to waste. I want them to be with me always. Okay, so you just got Ellie and she was there for a day and then you ate her anyway. You had no connection with her. So you can't like call it a spiritual thing, but then also just treat them as calves that you don't know and then make it about just consuming and being like a way to get back at culture and also a way to get back at being like everybody is greedy in their own way because look, it's easier, it's cheaper to eat people than to actually take care of people. Like, pick a lane, lady. Stop making it all about like making a political point of some kind and pick a lane. Either make it this, or make it that, or make it that, or find a way to make them all work together. But just they were so separated that it was then very odd to hear them said all together. Language/writing. I felt the building and tension was done generally well here with how you know that there was a shoe that was going to drop at some point, but a lot of Ed's discomfort also comes from his lack of familiarity with the role that he is taking on and his paranoia because of his ties and experiences with the Yakuza, which makes sense. It also acknowledges that his experiences with the Yakuza have put him on edge. So you don't necessarily know what to read into as he is being overly paranoid and what is normal. Another way it works with attention is the way that it brings attention to certain details when mixed with the dialogue. Quote, well, Ed, this morning has been busy, so I'd like to be seated for lunch at 2 today. She checks her thin gold watch. And remember my brief. Be sure to include meat on the menu. For me, I feel a meal without meat is merely a side dish, she says, erupting into laughter at her own quip, her canines slick with saliva. So, like, obviously, there are certain things that are hints, and then I've given you other examples of laying it on thick. Then you have the areas where the writing ends up over explaining things to the point that it slows the story down, slows the narrative down, and talks down to the reader. Quote, "Such a shame that your wife couldn't make it. Send her my love." That last one was accompanied by a huge eye roll to indicate that the very last thing being sent to my wife was any sort of love. If you just say that she rolled her eyes as she said that, we'll get the implication that she is being insincere. The book constantly does this, where it says character doing something and then explains to you why that character is doing that thing when it is obvious why that character is doing that thing. World building. While the tension building is great, the writing is also very on the nose in a way that not only drops hints, but some of the characterizations, the we're hiding things from you and it's probably cannibalism, it's definitely cannibalism, is just so in your face from the opening that it's amazing that it gets by and everyone knows except for Ed. And I could almost see him ignoring it on purpose, as I mentioned before, because he is desperate for that money and desperate to live Hazeline's life. And, it would go with the greedy thing where he is willing to trade his humanity in order to get the lifestyle that he wants, that he is projecting onto Sayori, of Sayori wanting it, when it's really just him wanting that lifestyle and him thinking that his wife wants it when she just wants a husband that will be her partner. That would have been better, but also the narration somewhat ruins that by explaining things to the reader in places where it's not the character. Quote, "Are those teeth?" he asks, pointing at a set of earrings set in gold. "Yes, wolf fangs, I believe," Roderick replies. Ed pulls a face. "Do you know about the Kilinago people?" the housekeeper asks. Ed shakes his head. "Hazeline's fascinated by them. They are fierce tribespeople of the Caribbean, and the word cannibal originated from when colonizers discovered them. The male warriors would wear the teeth and bones of their victims as trophies, and wearing gold as a status symbol. I think these earrings are a homage to them." Ed looked down at the new necklace for the first time, the one gifted by Hazeline's friends from today, and is horrified by the bizarreness of the piece. It's a small, delicate gold chain, but on it is what looks like a piece of bone. It must be animal, though it looks like a small finger bone and has been painted gold and embedded with tiny azure gems. How are you going to say she admires cannibals who wear the stuff as jewelry, looking at human bone jewelry, and then go, "Oh no, it's a wolf"? Can we say largest segue ever? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And a teenager disappears, and a body bag and meat show up when she disappears, and it's imported from where she's like, there's just so much in this where I wanted him to be willfully ignorant and it to show that he was willfully ignorant. So, like, then the moment when Hazeline is straightforward with him and he's like, no, he's just rejecting it because he doesn't want to believe it because he wants to pretend he's a better person and he's not being greedy. And then she could call him on being greedy and willing to do this as long as he thought he was a better person. Like, there are so many things in here that could work, and I am sad that it chose what it wanted to do in a different way. That doesn't work for me. And it's a complete idiot. The only way this works is how much of a complete idiot Ed is. The title of the chapters also makes it read more amateurish and adds on to that on the nose feeling because the chapters titles kind of tell you what's in the chapter. Like one of them being indebted to a megalomaniac. Yeah, it means it means Hazeline. That's back when she offered to cover his costs of things. Going into the characters, for the most part, getting away from areas where I already critiqued it, for the most part, I thought that Ed was a great, flawed protagonist who obviously cared the most about his family and was willing to do everything for his family. Also struggled with ego, also struggled with depression and coping with depression, which can take on many, many looks. And I think people often underestimate how ugly depression can actually look and the things that it can get you to do um, when you're coping and then hide those things. I think it did a great job of that and just the trouble he got into and how ashamed he was, not only of being unable to take care of his wife, but then also letting his depression get so bad that it turned into punishment for his wife and child, and he wanted to hide that. And I actually thought it was a great character moment for him to be honest with his wife, even though he was scared, even though obviously she reacted with anger, which is fair. I think it would have created a stronger story for it to either turn into Hazeline killing Sayuri and then taking the child because she wanted a child of her own and never had one, or Ed and Sayori taking over Hazeline's stuff because they're working as a team now, and Ed is too far deep that he has to get rid of Hazeline before something happens to Sayori. That could have been really good. But I thought in general his setup was good. I don't think Hazeline's character was explored enough because, like I mentioned before, she has conflicting motivators for what she's doing. And that just feels more like making a statement of some kind through her action and using her actions to describe what is meant to be discussed here. And Roderick was more of a prop. Nakamura was also more of a prop. He was the driver, and they should have been discussed more. Like, what the frick was this leaning over naked, finger eating lamb like monsters? Like, what was that? I know it sort of came up again at the orgy thing, but it never came up before that. From the beginning to the ending, it was never in there. And then Bolton, I'm very disappointed that we didn't get more about him. We just got a reference that she truly loved him and he saw in her something he didn't see elsewhere. Like, did he introduce her to cannibalism? Anything. I wish we had gotten more. Like, even how she got into charity. Was that Bolton's charity that she took over when he passed? Like, that would make sense too, but we don't really get anything. And so everything just feels like a tool to write a thriller. Plot. The plot is pretty simple and straightforward and obviously fairly generic. You got a dude who's in debt with the Yakuza, doing anything, being desperate in order to pay it off. I've already discussed where the plot could have gone that would have made more sense, so I'm not gonna reiterate that, just like, I'm disappointed. That's all I'll say. Hey, themes. So to preface the section here on themes and other, discussing a theme that's seemingly present in a work and agreeing or disagreeing with it doesn't invalidate it being in a story and doesn't invalidate the perspective of the story. Often things may be said or implied, and we can only go off of what we observe and our perspectives and then, discuss after that. That said, you can, as a reader, see a theme and then respond to it, but disagreeing with said theme doesn't mean that it doesn't have a place or it shouldn't be written. It just gives you a chance to discuss those ideas and approaches as presented in a story with a specific scenario rather than broad generalizations or guessing or being like, what are the circumstances of all this stuff? And that's what I really like about books. What I love is when you can present situations and themes and relationships, and then we can actually talk about them realistically and just exchange ideas between them, even in unrealistic circumstances, as it gives a vehicle for discussion and ideas and nailed down scenarios rather than vague what ifs. Like, even talking about if I went to other books that we have discussed on the channel, I like to be able to more focus on the themes that come through or the relationships that come through and not have to focus on how a story was poorly written or something, because I can actually discuss those themes. And even like books that I don't necessarily enjoy, whether it was Shad's or Sam Fenna's or even Cozy's, I can still look at the things in there and try to pick out what themes I see happening throughout the descriptions of the stories, and then we can discuss what comes through and how we interpret those things. And that's really what I like. And that's what I get really excited for and what I have really missed while taking a break, just because like it's so much work to read and notate and record and then edit. It's so much time, but I love doing this and I love talking about this stuff. It's just like when you're depressed, finding the motivation to literally do anything. So I'm glad I'm at least here. Okay. Now, going from the title, it's obvious that this book is about greed. And then you have Roderick saying, everybody does something for whatever they love, whatever they are worshiping. I think that that is a very liberal use of the word greed because the dictionary definition of greed is excessive or rapacious desire, especially for or possessions. See, I don't think that the wife selling out her husband in order to have money because she was pissed off at him and wanted to take care of her child is greed. I think that that's wrath because she was so mad that she was willing to put him in a risky situation because she's like, well, fuck it. If you're not going to take care of me, I'm not going to take care of you. Fuck you. And that's still how it came off. Like she was yelling at him in that scene, which also fair, high tension because he just admitted to lying to you and putting you in major debt and that the criminals were on your family. So fair to be angry, but I also think that her actions were more akin to wrath than greed. And I don't think that you can call it greed as she did. I mean, she said it in the final sentence, like it can't be greed if it's not excess, but you can be wrathful. I was gonna say greedy for revenge, but that's just wrathful, honestly. I think Hazeline talking about wanting to eat, I mean, that's gluttony. If she's just like, "I just want to enjoy everything that I eat because I was skinny to fit into their boxes," 1, it's gluttony, and then 2, again, it's wrath because she is pissed off at society for rejecting her for who she is, that she's gonna do whatever the fuck she wants and break all social or whatevers. Roderick is so focused on his appreciation, affection for Hazeline. I wouldn't call that greedy. I don't know. Like I mentioned in ways how the story could be taken as greedy. And, like, if Ed had, like, chased after this with the desire for more and more to get into Hazeline's position at whatever the cost, even if he had all of his issues taken care of, which also could have happened. It could have gotten him to the point where all of his debts were paid off, his daughter's future was covered, his wife was happy, and he still wanted more. That would have and, then that's how it started getting into the worst stuff. That would have expressed greed. But I don't think him wanting to take care of his wife counts as greedy. I don't think Hazeline wanting to eat to flip off the way that she was treated in that country as greedy. I don't think her eating people because she is pissed off that the social systems don't take care of single mothers or poor people is greedy. Like, none of this actually supports the idea of greed except for rich people being greedy. That they will literally consume people instead of taking care of people. Like, that's the only place that greed is, and I would have thought that the theme would have been covered in more things. And I also think that it would have been interesting for it to more associate or kind of do an analogy for how people socially cannibalize in order to build profile, which it sort of does, but sort of doesn't. And it sort of implies, like, we all do it in different ways, so don't pretend that you're any better. Like, that's what Hazeline said to the other rich people. That's what the other people, I think it was just Hazeline that was snapping at them being like, "You think that you're better than me, but we all do this, so, shut the fuck up." And I've heard this argument before, and while people do generally have a level of self-interest in the actions that they do, I don't believe it is all cannibalistic self-interest. Though I do think that there are a lot who basically do this in different ways in order to raise their profile. They will sacrifice other people. And that's almost one of the things that I was talking about at the beginning of this video with people making business out of insult and hatred. And I have been used in some cases by other people to socially cannibalize, create anger, and rah-rahing about enemies that don't exist. It's just cruelty of selling other people's lives for content which turns to money, or selling drama that people don't actually believe in. And this is different than covering actual drama or covering actual things, but it's making stuff up in order to create drama, in order to create a straw man and make business by making people angry and self-affirming and affirming their beliefs, the biases. The same thing can be said with those where people are talking about books where, like, they've published so much slop because they've got bills to pay just like everyone else. That's making an excuse for cannibalizing something in order to enrich yourself. There's always this assumption by certain types of people that every other person will seep as low to the lowest. And honestly, with the depression that I've been going through recently, I don't think that it's far from the truth from a lot of people, but I also think that people do, and I think that a lot of people do and would do these terrible things in order to benefit themselves to a massive degree. And listening to so many stories of bad people doing bad things, or normal people doing things that are downright cruel or hurtful on purpose out of self-interest, it's hard to stay positive, which yeah, it's been difficult. But yeah. What am I saying here? Greedy is a thing. It can be approached in a bunch of different ways, and I'm kind of disappointed that this took it so on the nose with just, like, seemingly rich people are greedy and they would rather not pay for poor people to exist, and that's pretty much where greed stops, because I would not look at anything else in this book as greedy because it didn't actually pursue those. Even Ed going into the pachinko parlors and then doing worse gambling was not out of greed. It was out of desperation and also out of self-soothing. So that's disappointing. that greed wasn't used more as the theme when it's clearly what it was trying to do, and I'm not entirely sure how that slipped away. Anyway, in closing, overall, this book was okay for me. Though the ending, the more I think about the ending, the more it is just like, ugh. I think the ending absolutely weakened the story, especially because no matter what Ed did, yeah, he was a man with flaws, but he asked for help and he came clean. And all through what he was going through, he still loved his wife and daughter and wanted to do the best for them. He just had a weak moment, and the ending felt like a character assassination for the twist of it, or it assassinated Sayuri, who could have been just a wife who was frustrated and distant from the relationship, having issues from Ed lying, so she was falling away from him. Like there was stuff that was important there that we just never handled. The writing feels heavy-handed in both theme and hinting, but that could also get better over time with building skill. The pace is slow, and I think it'd be stronger with more character focus, but I don't think that's what this book was actually trying to do. The author did a good job on being unnerving with some of the descriptions when they did those, and for the things that the author did well, I can see their skill growing in that direction if they are attentive to their weaknesses. And, the thing that bothers me, I think the most, I mean, other than it not really super making sense in the story, but with the ending with Sayuri is just like, it's really hard to imagine purposefully hurting people that you care about or used to care about. And in this case, life partners. Like, I know it happens. I know it happens. I've been listening to so many Reddit stories at this point of like, I know, judge me. Of people talking about like how they purposefully hurt their partners, whether it was marriage or dating. And I just like, I cannot fathom purposefully going out of your way to hurt people that you supposedly love or have loved. Like, I write messy people too. Not quite like this, but the idea of doing something maliciously for the purpose of hurting someone who you loved, who has trusted you, who you've gained, whose trust you've gained and shared is unfathomable to me. It really is. I write different types of issues with people. I don't really write this sort of distrust, sort of betrayal. And I think at the end of the day, that's just because like I I really don't understand treating people like this. Like I know that people do it, but I don't really know how you get there. I don't know how you don't just like go away when you're tired of someone, but you have to like make it as bad as possible to harm somebody who trusted you. You have to end it by continuing to harm somebody instead of just like ending it and going away. I don't get it. And, like, I mean, I think about my own dad that I don't even like to call dad because he never filled that position for me, so I just say this before I just preface that so you know when I say Mark, that's who I mean. But, like, when Mark left, he cheated, and he chose to leave. He was given the option, and he apparently cheated a lot. It wasn't a new thing. He would cheat, then pause when he got caught, and then when, my mom laid back again, he would cheat again. And so when I was, like, 11, 12, caught cheating again with a high school girlfriend on the internet, and he was given the option to stay and fix things with the family or to go live with his girlfriend. He chose to go live with his girlfriend, yet he still didn't end it there. He chose to end the relationship, but then he would stalk my mom to church. He would refuse to pay child support while my mom was taking 4 children under 18. He got a job making $13 an hour when he was making 6 figures so that he could go to the judge and say, "Hey, look at the job that I have, so I can't afford to pay all of the back payments on the child support," and had it reduced multiple times. Tried he tried to get my mom kicked out of the house that she was living in as payback. For what? Just go away. You chose to leave. And so, like, I genuinely do not understand the choices that people make to purposefully harm others. Or like there were so many stories, and then like also watching stuff with like Dylan's in Trouble where he talks about Love Island and different dating shows and all of the cheating that happens there, or in Colleen Hoover books where it's just like infidelity is such a popular thing in books that people are like, oh, this is entertaining. And I don't understand. That is such a violation of love of another person for no fucking reason most of the time. And I don't understand doing that sort of pain to somebody on that has trusted you. I really do not understand how it is entertaining to watch somebody harm somebody like that. Anyway, this is like just going off because this goes back to Sayuri selling out her husband who had a problem. And yeah, I get being pissed off that he lied. I get being pissed off and angry that he got involved with the Yakuza that were going to come after you and your daughter if he didn't keep up with it. And he hid that from you. I understand being pissed off that he was hiding that you could be evicted and that he wasn't accepting help. But when she's like, hey, BT dubs, your employer doesn't do that just for no good reason. She wants something. You're warning him, which means you've somewhat forgiven him. And then you have that be the last interaction we see with Sayuri before he gets chosen to be sacrificed, and then throw back to Sayuri setting him up before they reconciled, because that looked like reconciliation to me. Unless, again, we have to look back at that scene and she's just faking it so she gets the finances. But I don't understand being so angry at somebody whom you have a life with, whom you've just been in a rough patch with, and then being like, you know what? Fuck you, I want you to die. I will sell you out to die. And I know that that is excessively common. Like that level of anger, that level of betrayal of like doing something to people like that is so common, because otherwise why would Colleen Hoover's books be so popular when it's infidelity, when it's murder and infidelity? Why would that be everything on Lifetime Movie Network? Why would it be so common if it wasn't popular? But it is not something that I will ever understand, because just leave. Can you not just try to minimize the harm that you do to somebody else when something doesn't work? Can you not try just talking to somebody when something doesn't work? I'm not even saying she has to not be pissed off at him for what he did, but there had to be another way to do this than where it chose to go. And it doesn't relate back to greed at all. It doesn't benefit the theme of greedy. It doesn't benefit what Ed was doing, what Ed was involved with. It's just wrath. It's just wrath for the sake of a twist, for the sake of punishment. And that's why the ending makes me so pissed. And a lot of time, if you look at these actions, people think that they are owed something or were owed something, and because of whatever happened, they have a right to harm someone else because they weren't given that thing, to drag it on, and it's just gross. It's really gross. But yeah, I think the building was fine. I think it was just on the nose too much and didn't trust the reader enough, and then at some point it lost what it was doing. And I don't think that Hazeline and Boughton were developed enough for choosing how this went into greed. But those are my thoughts on Greedy by Callie Kazumi. Let me know your thoughts. Have you read this book? Will you read this book? What about it do you agree or disagree with, or the story? And yeah, with that said, I'm looking forward to the discussion and the comments down below. And on that, have a great weekend. I'm going to try to get back to consistency. I need to kick my own butt with consistency in quite a few things. So here's to hoping we can go to some sort of normalcy. Anyway, don't die.
To my children, Tommy, Annabelle, and Ike, if you forget everything else I said in the lifetime I had with you, I need you to remember these 3 things. 1. I believe a woman's love is the most powerful thing on this earth. It can start wars, end them, and change the devil himself into someone God might see worthy of giving a second chance. She don't owe this love to anyone, but she do carry it around with her so long as she is living, and to give it away is something special. This is why evil will do anything it can to pervert women's nature and destroy their innocence. Of every crime you might commit during your lifetime, be it of daring or necessity, for every defiance you may act out against God, government, or man, avoid harming the innocent, for the day that we become bloodthirsty beasts where love don't exist anymore is the day hell on earth has come. And as bad as it may seem at times nowadays, we ain't there yet. For this reason, minimize violence done to and by women. As givers of life, it's against their nature to do harm, Every act of violence done to them is meant to break their souls, turning what should be a giver of hope into a bitter black widow, destroying lives in the mercy of her care for no reason but to quiet the corruption of her own self. It is only when you come across these sorts of women that you should put them down. 2. Everything you do in your life will create consequences, both seen and unseen, reaching far beyond what you can imagine. Nothing you do exists solely within your arm's reach, and you'll never be able to anticipate what all your decisions will do. Think hard of every action you take, because you won't know how long your choices will stalk you. Be firm in knowing who you are outside of the noise, and live beyond the expectations or news or rumors of the day. 3. There ain't anything stronger than the family you build for yourself. Protect the ones you love with your life, and they'll give you theirs in return. Family ain't defined by blood, understand that. And for as strong as the bonds of your family are, know that you'll find just as much passion in the people who hate you. While you'll risk your life for the ones that you care about, those who find your existence to be an insult will risk themselves to put an end to their affliction. As cruel as it may seem, a man running on hate will stop at nothing until one of yous is dead. Don't let you be the ones taken from, be it by outlaw, lawmen, or anyone in between. The only one who'll be looking out for you is you and yours. Showing mercy to men who wouldn't show it to you is a costly mistake. Maybe there's another way to be, but in all my years, I ain't found a way around a man's seed for greed and pride. Sometimes I believe there ain't the ability for man to change at all, be it by lead or legislation. I ain't claiming to be right about nothing. On many things, I wish I hadn't the experience. But what I want is for my kids to live a life better than the one I did, and to avoid the hardships I went through while finding the truth and purpose in what matters more than all the gold in this country. It's my hope that by sharing the things I learned, my kids will be better than their old man ever was, and that what I done ain't what people remember me for, but who y'all are gonna become that'll be the legend of Bill Cassidy.